Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was a father to Athena and Aphrodite's child. Being a single father with two little girls is hard enough, but when there are monsters trying to kill them every day, it's even worse. Well, he loves them more than he loves himself, so he would just have to hope for the best and pray to the mothers of his children. Welcome aboard! A Father's Love, Chapter 20. The slightest glimmer of light betrayed the silent hiss of the spear that fell from the skies. Like a bolt of lightning, the golden lance struck the ground and lit the earth asunder. Tendrils of golden light erupted from the burnt grass and ignited all that they touched, destroying the clearing of woodland that once stood. A field of fire spread from the spear, and only served to illuminate the glorious form of Athena as she landed upon her golden weapon. The goddess of war's grey eyes shone with raw power as she stared down at her unflinching foe. You're really serious? Aegis. The horrific face of Medusa appeared as a shield on Athena's arm, screaming death and crying havoc. Sending her godly power through the shield, Athena subjugated the face of her thrall. With the elegance worthy of the war maiden of Olympus, she sped toward her opponent. Prepare yourself, Naruto. The air around Naruto warped into a vortex as Athena approached, and in an instant her shadow was before him. From basic instinct, he reacted. With a flick of his wrist, he summoned a tri-pronged kunai to his hand. Staring at the spear that was aimed to pierce his head, he stepped forward and slashed his blade. Gold met iron and a shockwave of gale force broke the earth that surrounded them, dirt erupting to form a wide crater of burnt ground. He's strong, Athena mused as she was stopped in midair with one hand. From the shadow of his kunai, Naruto summoned another kunai and dropped it to the ground, tempting Athena's gaze. The instant her eyes lingered upon the drop, a burst of chakra gathered in Naruto's hand. In a split second, Athena saw the same vortex of energy Naruto used to defeat Ares. Before she could react, Naruto vanished before her eyes. Shunshin no Jutsu. Recognizing the technique, Athena turned to protect her back. As she predicted, Naruto stood before her. Gathering lightning in her arm, she flicked her arm out, sending a bolt of lightning at her man. Hiroshin no Jutsu. Athena's eyes widened as Naruto vanished with a speed greater than what she had witnessed, and through the corner of her eyes she caught a glimpse of his golden hair. Like a flash of yellow, Naruto appeared behind her, right where he dropped his second kunai. Swiftly, Naruto shot his arm out and struck Athena's back. Rasengan. Aegis. The golden cape upon Athena's back shone with divine light as the power of her shield was transferred into it. Blue chakra clashed against golden godly energy, and another gale of breakneck force erupted from the collision. Tremors shot through the ground and the very earth cracked and broke. As pieces of earth shattered and blasted from them, Athena summoned her spear and pierced the space behind her shoulder, aiming for Naruto's head. With widened eyes, Naruto caught the spear with his free hand. To his shock, the spear was burning hot, and it scorched his hand. Instead of relenting, Naruto stood strong as several ethereal chains formed around his arm. They wrapped themselves like chainmail around Naruto until they formed a gauntlet. Athena watched as Naruto's armored hand crushed her spear into pieces. As the clash of power died down, Athena flared her aura and jumped back, avoiding any kunai Naruto had thrown, and landing a distance away from him. As gray stared into blue, Athena raised her arms in the air and summoned her army of weapons. Hundreds of golden spears, each much larger than the one Naruto had destroyed, and glowed with the glory of Athena. Together they shone like a burning star, and they fell onto Naruto like a meteor shower. As the rain of destruction approached, Naruto drew his stance as his blue eyes morphed into purple ripples. With both hands outstretched, Naruto faced Athena's attack. Shinra Tensei. An invisible repulsive force clashed against the divine spears of Athena. At this bout, the very sky split, and a wide canyon divided the clouds. Neither immortals gave ground as waves of destructive vibrations shattered everything around them. The ever-growing crater beneath them had turned into an abyss that swallowed the entire forest that surrounded them. Gales of slicing wind from the clash flared out at both ends, some blades cutting both Naruto and Athena. Soon the spears themselves ignited into an inferno and looked as if the end of the world was near. With one final bout, the spears were shattered, and a golden explosion blinded the area. As the thundering ruptures ceased and the smoke cleared, both Naruto and Athena stood strong, both hovering in the air. Athena ignored the cuts on her body and smiled. "Not bad, Naruto." Naruto smirked and vanished. The goddess' eyes widened as Naruto appeared behind her with his kunai by her neck. "You shouldn't have let me touch your cape." Athena pursed her lips, "So you can mark other objects, too. I don't expect this to work on you again, but I win this time." Athena signed and rested fully onto Naruto's chest. "Very well. You win." Wrapping his arms around Athena, Naruto happily hovered down to the edge of the large abyss they created. Sitting down on the scorched ground, he chuckled and placed Athena on his lap, trying not to dirty her white and golden clothes. She giggled and placed a hand on his cheek as she kissed him tenderly on the lips, nibbling on his lower lip with a smile. With her hands still around his neck, she pulled away, resting her forehead against his. "I'm glad you can give me such a good fight." He smiled before looking around them. "Wow, we really wrecked this place." Athena shrugged, "Not as bad as last time." Perhaps Naruto paused as a blush appeared on his face. "Naruto?" asked Athena, "Are you okay?" "Why yeah." The goddess started to turn golden as she felt something hard poke her bottom. Soon that embarrassment turned to annoyance and anger. "Aphrodite." The world warped around them and all turned to white. Naruto found himself with his eyes closed, once again in the comfort of his bedroom. His tattered clothes were replaced with silk pajamas and instead of burnt ground, he was comfortably resting on his warm bed. His pillow was fluffy, and his comforter was warm. Opening his eyes, he saw that he was indeed awake in his bedroom. Then he felt a familiar pleasure. "Oh! Aphrodite!" cried Athena as she stormed from her side of the bed. "How many times do I have to tell you to not bother us when we're training?" She looked around the room, searching for Aphrodite. "It took me half an hour to set up that Mindscape training ground." Muttered Naruto as he squirmed. "Athena. Where is she?" Naruto bit his lip to hold back his moan, his face dangerously red. A slight shuffling was heard from under the thick comforter and Naruto could no longer hold back his moan. Athena's eyes widened and gritted her teeth, her face once again a golden glow. Then much to both their shock, Aphrodite threw the comforter away to reveal her nude body spread out along Naruto's legs. With a firm grip on her love's morning glory, Aphrodite gave it a strong lick before she turned to Athena. "Sorry about that," she said as her lips dragged along Naruto's length, "but this looked so delicious that I couldn't help myself." Naruto watched as Aphrodite's lips wrapped themselves around his lower head and as Athena stared at his length. It was too much for his young, ancient mind. He threw his head back as he blasted into the waiting mouth of Aphrodite. "Ah!" Athena's face resembled a light bulb as she shut her eyes and turned away. "What in Tartarus is wrong with you?" Aphrodite blissfully enjoyed herself as she licked her fingers clean, "Just enjoying my morning breakfast." In unison, Athena and Naruto cried out. "Aphrodite! Are you okay, Daddy?" asked Lacey as she looked up from her pancakes. "Your face is really red." Naruto smiled at Lacey and rubbed her head. "I'm fine, princess." Dad, remember to sign my permission slip before we go." Annabeth finished her pancakes and was packing her backpack. "Mama already signed, but I need yours, too." "Sure." Aphrodite silently smiled at the sexual tension between Naruto and Athena, humming a soft tune as she winked at her fellow goddess, who was silently flushed as she stared at her coffee. Holding back a giggle, she reached for Naruto's glass of milk after she finished her own strawberry milk. She took a sip as she winked at Naruto, who immediately blushed. "Athena, is something wrong with your coffee?" Aphrodite smirked at Athena's glare. "I'm sorry. I think I made it too strong this morning." With a suppressed laugh, she held out Naruto's glass of milk. Do you want to add some of Naruto's milk to it? It might make it taste better. Athena choked on her breath and covered herself with a shroud of mist before the girls could see her golden glow. Naruto stood up abruptly. Okay, time for school. Annabeth rose a brow. Already? It's only 7:30. I'm not done my pancakes yet, added Lacey with a pout. With an awkward chuckle, Naruto sat back down. Right, sorry about that. Finish your breakfast, Lacey. After another half hour of breakfast, the girls were ready to head to school, and Athena was more than happy to take them herself, but not before she stepped hard on Aphrodite's foot. It was painful, but seeing the goddess of war's golden face made it well worth it for Aphrodite. Bye, Dad, cried out Annabeth as she ran out to the car with her mother. Lacey kissed Naruto's cheek. Bye-bye, Daddy. Naruto smiled at his girls. Have a good day, honey, princess. Aphrodite smirked as she saw Athena waiting in the driver's seat. Wait up. I want to drop the girls off too. Naruto watched as the goddess of love jumped into the passenger seat just before Athena could leave. He knew that if the girls weren't in the car, she'd try to run Aphrodite over. Well, at least this makes things easier. With a flare of chakra, Naruto made a clone. I'll leave the house with you. I'll come back as soon as I can. The clone saluted the original. Okay, boss. The more Naruto searched his mind for memories, the more he found himself on the other side of the world. For centuries, he had wandered the shifting landmass, exploring each new settlement of men. From villages to towns, to stretching cities, he tried to understand the new humans around him. He walked from Asia to Europe back and again, growing familiar with Gaia's new surface. Some places left lasting impressions on his mind, and in turn he left impressions of his own. Hiration. In an instant, Naruto went through space and time and emerged at the highest peak on Earth. A harsh, chilling wind pushed against his back, hissing past his ears and echoing through the vast mountain range. With a smile, he looked up and touched the sky before he looked down at the earth, upon the mighty peak of Mount Everest. Unlike 1,000 years ago, mankind had left marks upon the great mountain. Hundreds of colorful flags decorated the snowy cap of the mountain, but the mark he had left remained unblemished. Hovering down toward the middle of the peak, Naruto found a small hollow cave, one he had blasted into an age ago. Only a few steps into the cave, he found a carving of a whirlpool, the mark of his mother's clan. With a smile, he placed a hand on the mark, and with a flare of chakra, the treasure sealed within was unleashed. It was an emerald crystal, and it glimmered brilliantly in the dark cave. Sorry Bachan, but I'm going to have to change your necklace a bit. Holding the crystal between his palms, Naruto closed his eyes and focused his spirit. Banbutsu Sozo no Jutsu. A soft glow emanated from his hands, and when he opened them, 2 rings were formed, and at their crowns were the emerald crystal, perfectly cut into 2 shining gems. He smiled. Perfect. Shut up. Athena stormed into her home as Aphrodite lingered behind her, a gleeful smile accompanying her joyful skips. The goddess of love rounded on her fellow goddess and leaned close to her ear, wrapping her arms around Athena's. I'm just trying to help you, she whispered, laughing as Athena shoved her away. I don't need your help, you harlot. Much to her frustration, Athena felt ichor rush to her face. I may be inexperienced, but I am not oblivious. I know what happens between husband and wife, and I don't need your convoluted, scandalous renditions of the bedroom. Aphrodite crossed her arms and leaned to her side, shaking her head at the golden goddess. Dear Order, I bet you're just going to wear granny panties and a long nightgown for your first time. Ignoring Athena's oppressing eyes, she continued, you do realize that we've progressed beyond the 50s, much less the ancient times. Not even mortal women are as conservative as you now. Aphrodite sighed, explore a bit. I am not talking about this with you. Aphrodite shrugged, you can go talk to Mother Rhea or Hera, but they'll tell you the same thing. Athena growled, I am not going to wear granny panties. The ground shook at her anger as she saw Aphrodite smirk, I was never going to wear them. I know what I am doing. Oh, slyly whispered Aphrodite, so you've been preparing. Please stop talking. Aphrodite moved faster than Athena had ever seen and grabbed the hem of her shirt. Let me see. Go away. Amid their bickering, none noticed the black jutsushiki that emerged from beneath their feet. Before Aphrodite could remove Athena's clothes and before Athena impaled Aphrodite, two golden flashes appeared in between them. Surprised, neither goddesses moved as the two Narutos wrapped their arms around them. Sorry to interrupt, but come with me. With a wink, they all vanished in a flash. Athena blinked and found herself surrounded by a familiar sight, at the podium of a lecture hall. The arms around her waist tightened from behind and she was pulled against Naruto's chest. With a smile, she rested against him as he planted a kiss on her cheek, feeling his warmth breath whisper at her ear. I was sitting in the third row, she smiled at his words as she reminisced the day she first met her student, dressed all in orange. Right there, at the edge, a nervous wreck. I was trying to play it cool and meet some new friends, but the moment you walked into the room, I was mesmerized. If you'd known, you would have probably yelled at me, but I forgot what class I was in and what the lecture was about. Her smile grew as she shook her head. I definitely would have yelled at you. But, I was a good student. He chuckled and kissed her cheek again. I paid attention to class and dragged on to your every word. The goddess nodded. You had your moments, but when you weren't distracted, you were one of the best I've had. You can't blame me for being distracted, he muttered with a smile. It's not easy having a crush on your favorite professor. His smile grew at her golden flush. I stayed behind after class to ask you questions, but I just wanted to get to know you better. I'm not very good at it, but you never even knew I was trying to flirt with you, did you? Athena's golden face told him the answer. You're just adorable, Athena. The goddess turned to face Naruto, her arms snaking behind his neck. What are we doing here, Naruto? Well, it was in this room that I had first thought about a life together with you. He stared into her piercing gray eyes, orbs of power that would disintegrate lesser or less favored beings, and saw nothing but love and adoration. It was kind of pathetic, and I was scared to even look at you because I knew you'd somehow figure out what I was thinking. Athena's blush grew increasingly golden as she leaned closer to Naruto. You were always so confident, smart and witty. And so passionate about what you teach, about war and peace. I was hooked. Athena suppressed a growing smile and she pecked Naruto's lips. You must have been very happy when I chose you for the extra credit project. So happy. He smiled. My goal was to ace the class to impress you, but I really hoped that we would become closer. I had a lot of fun with you. I didn't remember much back then, so going through the simulations of so many wars throughout history was fascinating. It's a little weird now since I remember that Genghis Khan is my son, but it was still fun. He chuckled to Athena's giggle, and I really did think that we were close. At least more than teacher and student, we were at least friends. She nodded. We definitely were. But I was in love with you, it wasn't enough. He stared into her eyes and continued, I couldn't stop thinking about you, and more than anything I wanted to ask you out on a date. I knew there was some unspoken thing between us, and it was possible that you might say yes. Her arms tightened behind his neck and her lips grew ever closer to his. I stayed up for nights preparing. I went through countless simulations in my head and thought of hundreds of ways I could ask you. It took almost 2 weeks, but I did decide on a way to ask. Athena bit her lower lip and asked, then why didn't you ask? Naruto chuckled and scratched the back of his head. Well, I never got the chance. The day I planned to ask was the day you brought me Annabeth. Athena fell silent as her eyes widened. It was a surreal day, a surreal month actually. The woman I loved turned out to be an actual goddess, and our intellectual bond actually conceived a child. I am sorry. No, don't apologize. Annabeth is one of the best things that could ever happen to me. In a way, she is really the person who made my life complete. Athena looked down as he continued, she was the cutest baby. She has my blonde hair and blue eyes, but she is more like you. I had a little angel that was the perfect combination of us, and that was a gift that far outweighed whatever date we could have went on. I never knew, she whispered as she looked back into his eyes, tears welling in her eyes. But there wasn't a single day I don't regret leaving you alone. She hugged him close and hid her face against his chest. I was scared, for the first time ever I was scared. I am never surprised or shocked. Everything I do is calculated and every outcome is as I expect, but you were an anomaly. My feelings for you far outgrew what I expected, and I was repeatedly caught off guard. It had never happened to me before, and I was in a near panic. He couldn't see, but he knew she was crying, so he hugged her tight. I told myself that it was just an anomaly, so I did what I would usually do. She sniffled, and he felt the tears through his shirt. I'm sorry I was a coward. He shook his head. Please don't cry. He gently ran his fingers through her hair until she looked at him. I was the same. I could have asked for you to stay. I wanted to ask you, but I just couldn't. Never again, Athena said with conviction. I don't care who stands in our way. I promise you, Naruto. You will never be alone again. I will never hurt you again. We will be together forever. With his own tears welling, he chuckled, you stole the words right out of my mouth. She kissed him hard on the lips. I promise that the next child we have, I will be there. We will be together as a family. She let a few tears fall. I love you so much, Naruto. He brushed away her tears while his own fell. I love you, too. Athena could only nod in silence as her tears fell. Resting his forehead against hers, Naruto gave a tearful smile. You know, I was planning to ask you out right here at this spot. Athena blinked away her tears and listened. It is a bit cheesy, but it was basically this. He snapped his fingers and the lights in the room dimmed. A soft melody played in the background. Athena laughed through her tears. I love it. I decided to just go with the classic. Take your hand, he said as he held her hands in his, and stare into your eyes and just ask the question. He smiled at her smile. I know it's many years too late, but I still want to ask you. This is pretty much what I had in mind, but now the question is a little different. Athena's eyes widened, and he shook his head. As usual, I'm sure you figured it out already, but here goes. With a smile, Naruto got down on one knee and held out a ring with a green crystal. Athena, will you marry me? The tears fell again, but these were ones of happiness. Yes. She nodded her head and replied to a question she never thought she would be asked. Yes. I will marry you, Naruto. With shaking hands, the ring slipped perfectly on Athena's finger. Before Naruto could even stand, Athena flew into his arms, both falling to the floor. Laughing and crying all at once, the two immortals sharing a joy that was millennia in the making. As the world warped around her, Aphrodite blinked and found herself back in their bedroom. With a grin, she slithered onto her lover's lap as her arms encircled his neck. Dragging her lips along his neck, she licked her way to his ear, fluttering kisses on his jawline until she reached his lips. With a growing smile, she gently bit his lower lip and welcomed the hardened enthusiasm beneath her thighs. You're getting bolder, honey, the goddess whispered against Naruto's lips, looking for some afternoon delight? Naruto merely smiled at his lover. At his silence, Aphrodite pulled away and saw his stare. What is it? She asked under his fervent gaze. What's the matter? He shook his head. Nothing, he whispered with a growing smile. I love you so much, Dite. She returned his smile. It was not one of the goddess' flirtatious or playful smiles, nor was it one of passion or lust. It was a rare genuine smile of happiness, one that only one person had ever seen in the millennia of her existence. If it was possible, Aphrodite became even more beautiful in Naruto's eyes, and as seamless as time, their smiles met in the gentlest of kisses. It was in here that I first fell in love with you, he whispered against her lips, welcoming her into his arms as he fell onto his back. Are you sure it was in here? She asked with a giggle. We did spend most of our time in here, but I don't recall us talking that much. Call me naive, but I was a young man in love, and I was spending my nights in bed with the goddess of love. I was head over heels after the first night. Combing his fingers through her long red hair, he continued, but I guess it was just the start of it all. Leaning into his warm hand, Aphrodite rested herself on Naruto. What do you mean? I'm no deity of love, but for me I felt a few different kinds of love for you. He wrapped his arms around Aphrodite and hugged her close. You're the most beautiful woman in existence, falling in love with you is easy. Even after our first meeting, I couldn't get you out of my mind. Whenever I closed my eyes, I would see you and miss you. Aphrodite kissed his neck. I was the same with you, you know. He smiled, but it soon changed. How so? As much as I wanted to hope, I knew that you'd leave me one day. Naruto felt Aphrodite stiffen, and immediately hugged her tighter. Athena had told me of the old laws and I knew that no matter how much you loved me, you aren't allowed to stay with me. And I was scared, because it really hurt when Athena left me. He kissed Aphrodite to stop her apology, but even so, I knew that no matter how much it would hurt when you left, it wouldn't compare to the regret I would feel if I ended things between us then. He kissed her again, and I knew it was the same with you. I had no idea you felt like that, she whispered. I really hoped you didn't know. If you did, you might have ended things then to save me from more pain. I wanted nothing more than to spend as much time as I possibly can with you. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry. He kissed her tears away. Don't apologize. You made me the happiest man on earth, and now that I remember most of my past, I know that I was never as happy in the millennia I've been alive than in the year we had together. I won't ever hurt you again, my love. She was silenced by another kiss. I know. I also know that leaving hurt you even more than it hurt me. He sighed. I really wanted to ask you to stay, but I was never strong enough to ask. I forced myself to believe that 1 year with you was enough. I was afraid of your answer. He bit his lip and hugged Aphrodite closer. I was a coward and there wasn't a day in those 6 years that I didn't regret not asking you to stay. Aphrodite shook her head. No. She whispered, unable to say more. I had a lot of chances to ask. He gave a tearful chuckle. One time when we were at the candy store, I was going to ask you to marry me with a ring pop. I thought you'd find it cute. As tears fell, she nodded. I would have loved that. Later on, I went and bought an actual wedding ring. He wiped away her tears as he continued. I carried it in my pocket for the entire time we were together, but I was never able to ask you. Even when Lacey was born, I couldn't ask you. Aphrodite gripped onto Naruto's shirt as tightly as she could. I would have said yes. I'm sorry I didn't ask. No, she repeatedly whispered. It wasn't your fault. I promise you that I will never let anything, or anyone separate us. I will never be too weak or afraid to fight for you. He kissed her once more and stared into her ever-changing eyes. I will never let you go. With a soft glow, a wedding ring with a green crystal manifested in his hand. Aphrodite, will you marry me? The goddess of love sobbed and nodded. Why yes. Through his own tears, Naruto slid the ring onto Aphrodite's finger. We'll be together forever. Aphrodite pulled Naruto as close as she could. Forever. A Father's Love, Chapter 21. Proalia. It was midday and Apollo's chariot was atop the world at its daily zenith. Far beneath the sun, hidden away from the prying eyes of Olympus, was the home of Mother Rhea, and it was bustling with festivities. For the first time in a very long time, the mother of the gods played host for the last days before a wedding, and never had the Titaness imagined it would be for Athena and Aphrodite. It's so cute! Squealed Lacey as she held in her hands a pink teddy bear. I'm going to name him Plushie. Hestia giggled at her favorite niece and patted her head. Good job, sweetie. That's one of the best teddies I've ever seen. Mama, I'm finished with sewing the buttons on, but I can't seem to get the eyes right. Annabeth was not enjoying building her own teddy bear as much as her sister. They're not symmetrical and I can't get the stuffing to match between the arms. It doesn't have to be perfect, honey, said Rhea as she sat down next to her great-granddaughter. As long as it looks cute, it's fine. Annabeth pouted, fine, but why are we making these anyway? Athena lifted her daughter onto her lap and kissed the top of her head. It's a part of our family's culture. We're Greek, and this is what Greek women did before their wedding in ancient times. The goddess easily altered her daughter's teddy and made everything perfectly symmetrical with her magic fingers. Girls your age would make toys and sacrifice them to the goddess Artemis, to pray for a healthy relationship with the gods and to find a good husband. Annabeth blushed and looked away. I don't want a husband. As the goddesses laughed, Lacey scoffed, sure, that's why you made a Percy version of a teddy. The elder daughter's blush deepened. I did not. She looked down at her teddy and saw its jet black hair and ocean green eyes. Shut up. Hestia sipped on her tea with a peaceful smile. We're not actually going to burn these, are we? Lacey immediately hugged her teddy close, making the goddess of family giggle. No, we're not actually going to burn these. Well, even if we did, they'll just end up over there, muttered Rhea. At the corner of the living room, the goddess Artemis sat alone by the table, happily munching down on the feast her grandmother and aunt had prepared for them. The goddess of the hunt and moon looked no less innocent than her two young nieces as she stuffed her divine face with cookies and cake. If she weren't in her adult form, she'd look like a good friend of the girls. Artie, stop stuffing your face and come help me. A collective sigh came from the goddesses in the room as Aphrodite entered the room. The goddess of love hadn't stopped ever since the day Naruto proposed, and Mother Rhea's home was nearly overflowing with conjured dresses. She had made over 1,000 wedding dresses for herself and Athena, each set differing in color and theme. Dite, that's enough. Athena sighed and rubbed her temples. This is crazy. You've already picked the right dress, so stop it already. The goddess of love stomped her feet. Come on, just a few more. I only have a few more ideas and then we'll move on to lingerie. Mommy, I liked the dress you had before more. Lacey skipped over to her mother and hopped into her arms. It matches really well with your eyes. Aphrodite smiled and kissed her princess. You know me the best, baby. She sighed. Okay, fine. I'll settle with dress number 143. That means you will wear the matching ones. Aphrodite had made matching versions for Athena, Artemis, Hestia, and Rhea. I'm going to start on the girls' dresses now. Rhea sipped on her glass of nectar and smirked. I never thought I'd see the day when Aphrodite would act like a bride. She shook her head, or that I'd be the one to officiate her wedding. The mother looked at her eldest daughter. The fates sure like to surprise us. Hestia giggled and nodded. Indeed. I never thought I'd be a maid of honor. Speaking of the maid of honor, muttered Athena as she looked over at her sister, are you going to help me with anything, Artemis? Of course. The goddess of the hunt walked over to her family, but not before finishing her last cookie. What do you need help with? The wedding feast, started Athena. Grandmother doesn't want to use normal human ingredients, so if you can have your hunters provide us with some meat, that'd be great. Artemis' eyes glowed silver at the thought of her grandmother's meat pies. Consider it done. And you need to try on your maid of honor dress. Athena raised her hand before her sister could speak. I've already asked Aphrodite to make it to your tastes. In her words, you won't look like a hussy. The huntress grunted, fine. She shot Athena a look. You're lucky, I love you. Athena smiled, I know. Mama, here are the books you wanted, said Annabeth as she carried 3 books that were nearly as big as her. Athena quickly took them from her daughter's shaking arms. Thank you, honey. Are we really going to burn books? The goddesses chuckled at Annabeth's question and Athena patted her head. Don't worry, honey. We're not destroying these books. We're offering them to the goddess Hera, another one of our traditions. Together with the books, Athena gathered a few boxes of whole wheat cereal, and these are for the goddess Demeter. Annabeth narrowed her eyes. I have some questions for you later, Mama. I figured you would. Athena winked at her daughter. I'll answer everything you need to know. Okay. Rhea smirked at the wise mother and daughter before she took the bundle of books and wheat and threw them into her fireplace. With a sigh, she placed her hands on her hips. There, invitations sent. The All-Mother giggled. Imagine their anger if we didn't invite them to this. Still, muttered Hestia, is it okay letting so many Olympians know? Rhea nodded, it should be fine. Atop the Empire State Building, the Mother of the Gods stood in waiting for her future grandson-in-law. Already she felt the presence of her youngest son linger beyond the skies over New York and could only hope that his anger wouldn't destroy the city they've all grown to love. Are you sure you want to do this? Naruto stared into the concerned eyes of Mother Rhea and nodded with no hesitation. Yes, without a doubt. With lingering thoughts about his family, he continued. Are you certain that they won't sense this? As capable as my sphere of privacy was in hiding you in Aries, so too is it capable of locking the senses of those within. The Titaness smiled at his grandson-in-law, rest assured, my boy. Your brides will be none the wiser, as ironic as that is. He turned with a sigh and welcomed the sight of the New York City skyline. He looked off into the distance and whispered his love to his family before turning around, staring at the elevator to heaven. With one last breath, he stepped forward to enter Olympus. Please lead the way, Lady Rhea. The sound of the doorbell cut through the festivities and everyone looked to the door as Rhea approached. With a small smile, the Mother of the Gods opened her door and welcomed the sight of her youngest daughter. Hera, the Queen of Olympus and the Goddess of Motherhood, Family and Home stood proudly at her mother's door, her divinity clashing with her simple civilian outfit. Hello, Mother. Rhea opened her arms and Hera quickly hugged her mother, her smile brighter than Apollo's chariot. Thank you for coming so quickly, honey. The Titaness gave her daughter a sweet kiss on the cheek and combed a hand through her hair. Come, almost everyone is here. Hera smiled as she stepped into the home, welcoming the sight of her family by the hearth. It had been ages since the last time she had taken part in the preparation of a wedding, and she had nearly forgotten how peaceful and joyous it could feel. Breathing in the delectable aroma of her mother and sister's baking, she gave the two brides a beautiful smile. Congratulations, my dears. Athena stood to welcome her stepmother. Thank you, Mother. Hera opened her arms and wrapped Athena in a warm hug. I'm very happy that you've finally taken this step. It has taken millennia, but I've finally got you in my domain. Athena chuckled at her words and returned the hug. I can't say I am too surprised, though. Aphrodite stood as Hera turned to look at her. I gave you a big hint, didn't I? Indeed, you did. The goddess of love wrapped her arms around the queen. Thank you for all of your help, Hera. For the sake of a happy immortal marriage, it was nothing. She pulled away and smiled at the younger goddess, and as the goddess of marriage, I hope you have an everlasting and jubilant marriage. Thank you, the new brides replied in unison. The Queen of Olympus looked down and smiled, and who are you two? Annabeth stared up at the beautiful lady and gave a small nod. Hello, I am Annabeth. And I'm Lacey. The younger sister had none of her sister's reservations and waved at Hera with a bright smile. Who are you, pretty lady? My name is Hera, and I guess I'm your grandmother. Hera smiled at Athena and Aphrodite, and for once, children close enough to almost be born in wedlock. Huh, you're our grandmother, too? Asked Lacey while looking over at Rhea. Well, technically I am your great-grandmother, sweetie. Oh, okay. Lacey shrugged with a smile. It's cool that we have so many relatives now. Right, Annie? Annabeth stared up at the grown goddesses, a small frown adorning her face. I have so many questions for you, Mom. I'm sure you do, muttered Athena proudly, but not now. You'll have your chance later. Rhea clapped her hands. Okay, let's move to the dining room. The cake should be ready. Welcome to Olympus, Naruto. Naruto marveled at the sight of Olympus, the immortal cradle of Western civilization. Immediately, the sky appeared to be taller than before, and the twilight seemed to tease at him from behind the blue hue. Each constellation shone as bright as the moon and seemed to dance for the pleasure of the gods. With a single step, Naruto began the stretching stairway of pure white marble, decorated with lanes of olive trees that reached for the skies. Hundreds of nymphs and minor gods wandered about the enormous gardens that were scattered around the floating paradise. It was a scene that humbled classical art and brought to life the wildest dreams of Michelangelo. Beautiful men and women lingered beneath the lush green, and each possessed such grace that it was as if they were enacting a play. And as the soft wind blew through his hair, Naruto found himself enchanted by the soft melody that breezed through the air. It was tune that soothed his nerves and for reasons he cannot fathom, felt nostalgic. But the peace of serenity was swiftly ended when the deities noticed their presence. Hundreds of eyes lingered upon Naruto and the music had turned into hushed whispers. "Pay them no mind, my boy." Mother Rhea gave him a smile that lifted his spirits. There had never been a more curious bunch than these bored immortals. "My lady, is it okay for me to just walk in like this? You are planning to confront the king of the gods. If you are ready to do that, why would you care about a bit of brazenness in front of these lesser gods?" Naruto nodded. "Come, we are nearly at the heart of Olympus." At the height of the stairs was a golden gate. It stood as tall as the Washington Monument and was wide open, leading to another stretching stairway. As soon as Naruto stepped through the gate, he felt the wind seize and the air rendered still, as if some power was subjugating the space. Ironing his will, he moved forward, stepping deeper toward the summit of Olympus. Off into the distance, Naruto saw 12 distinct structures, each tall enough to tower over the White House. "There's Athena's temple," said Rhea, breaking Naruto from his thoughts. Naruto caught sight of a gargantuan columned edifice. It was of pure white gold and marble and shone otherworldly under the golden light. He could recall the times Athena described her immortal home to him, but even her words didn't do it justice. It seemed to larger than the entire NYU campus and almost seemed like a beacon of light from beyond. "If the fates be good, you will see the day you wake up in that temple." The mother's words did little to comfort Naruto, but soon his eyes lingered upon another sight. Immediately, he smiled. "Lacey will love that place." Rhea gave a small laugh. "Ah yes, the infamous Barbie House of Olympus." The Temple of Aphrodite looked more like a gigantic version of a dollhouse, complete in pink marble and high towers. There was even a small moat surrounding the castle, but it was a circular river of pink liquid, and Naruto had half an inkling to suspect that it was a river of strawberry quick milk. As he made his way up, he passed all the temples of the gods, and in many he felt the presence of powerful beings, but none was like the one at the pinnacle. Strangely, it was the simplest of the 12. It stood taller than all others, but it was dressed in white marble and gold, none too flashy when compared to the others. But it was wide, much more imposing than the others, and it was in the dead center. The vibration was at its strongest upon reaching this temple. "Welcome, Naruto, to the Temple of Zeus." "What in the name of order is this?" "Proalia," answered Hera. "Come join us, sister." Rhea giggled at the stunned silence of her middle daughter and stood to hug her little girl. Being the last to arrive, Demeter was greeted with the scene of both her sisters and many of her nieces sharing cake, all in civilian clothing. "Don't just Proalia me!" cried Demeter over her mother's shoulder. "Explain." Hestia sighed. "Please sit down, sister. We will explain everything." Glancing at the two little girls staring at her, Demeter relented and sat down. "I'll have you all know that I was having tea with Persephone, and suddenly I get this box of cereal on my lap." Hera smirked as she continued, "I almost woke most of the dead when I saw the wedding invitation." "Why didn't Persephone come with you?" asked Artemis. "I'm not giving her any funny ideas until I find out what's going on." Athena shot Aphrodite a look that was promptly ignored, so she sighed and spoke. "Well, there's not too much to explain, Aunt Demeter." The goddess of wisdom gave a small smile. "Aphrodite and I are getting married to the man we told you about before, and we want you all to join us for Proalia." Demeter stared back at Athena blankly. "Excuse me?" Aphrodite nodded. "That's pretty much the gist of it. What the Tartarus happened in the last few months." Demeter leaned over the table to stare at her family. "The last time I heard of this, you two were still moping over the hearth. Now you're going to get married?" "Well, a lot has happened since then," said Athena. "I came down to basically live with Naruto the same week we talked about it around the hearth. Aphrodite sipped on her nectar as she spoke, and Athena came the day after. Artemis sighed, I tried to stop them, but they wouldn't listen to me. I did as well, said Hestia, I even asked Mother to help, but she made it even worse. I did not, exclaimed Rhea. To be fair, sister, I did not know fully either, said Hera with a smirk. But I did figure that something was going to happen after Aphrodite came to talk to me. Demeter remained silent until everyone was finished, but the corn braided in her hair started to pop. Her eyes shone a golden light as she glared at her family. Why am I the last to know about this? She crossed her arms and nearly pouted. Do you have any idea how bored I was these last few months? She looked at Hestia and Hera, and you two could have at least told me about this. Hestia smiled sheepishly, S. And you? Demeter continued, looking at Aphrodite, you come to talk to me about men, not Hera. What the Hades, you know I know more about this than she does. Aphrodite looked to the side and whispered, I know more about this than anyone. Come now, sweetie. Rhea placed a hand on Demeter's head, you know full well that this needs to be a secret for the time being. Athena and Aphrodite did what they deemed best for their situation. They've decided to tell you and Hera officially now because they want to have their family alongside them for Proalia. Demeter huffed, but relented to her mother. And you're scaring the girls, so you should calm down. Demeter looked to the end of the table and saw a curious Athena lookalike and a gleeful blonde girl. I'm not scared, exclaimed Lacey. The little girl stood on her chair to look at Demeter. Are you another grandma? Demeter was once again stunned silent. Hera patted Lacey's head. She does look like one, doesn't she? Aphrodite giggled and hugged Lacey close. Demeter, this is my little girl, Lacey. She kissed her daughter's head before saying, Baby, this is your Aunt Demeter. Oh, hi, Aunt Demeter. Chirped the little princess, another aunt is cool, too. Annabeth looked at her mother, how big is our family? We probably have the biggest family in the world, honey. Athena gave a small laugh along with Rhea and Hestia. I'm not sure when you'll meet all of them, but most of the closest ones are here. Artemis smirked and nodded, yeah, you can probably just ignore most of your uncles. Artie, behave, chastised Hestia. Rhea stood behind her bickering girls and smiled, hiding her troubles behind. As soon as Demeter stepped into her home, the Titaness activated the strongest possible barrier around her home, and she prayed to order in chaos that it would be strong enough to keep them oblivious to the outside. The patterns in the white marble seemed to move as Naruto walked along, as if on an ever-changing cloud. But he tore his gaze from the floor, opting to stand tall as he followed Mother Rhea into the temple. Soon, rather unceremoniously, they approached the throne room, and there sat Zeus, the king of Olympus and of the gods. By order, came the thunderous voice of the king, sounding oddly joyous. Mother, to what do I owe this pleasure? The god king was wearing a smart, black suit and had a cane in his hand. The only similarity between the god before him and his likeness in the museums was his long hair and black beard. But he was tall, much taller than a normal human, standing almost a fold taller than Naruto. Rhea smiled at her youngest and gestured to Naruto, I've brought a guest, my son. For the first time, Zeus laid eyes on Naruto, and his electric blue eyes pierced into the latter's azure blue. I present to you, Naruto Namikaze. This young man has requested an audience with you. Well, this is a surprise. The king's voice had lost its jubilance and had turned stony. I don't recall you ever bringing guests, mother. This must be no mere mortal man. I will let him speak for himself. Rhea looked back at Naruto, go on, my boy. Boy, speak. With a silent breath, Naruto approached the king and knelt to one knee. It is my honor to meet you, Lord Zeus. My name is Naruto Namikaze, and I have come to ask for your permission and blessing to marry Athena and Aphrodite. Naruto lowered his head and waited as silence filled the room. Zeus' laughter broke the silence, and it felt as if the whole of Olympus shook. Mother, have you brought me a jester for entertainment? The king's laughter ceased when Naruto raised his head to meet his eyes. Sorry, my lord, but it was no attempt at humor. I've come to ask for the hand of Athena and Aphrodite. Ria closed her eyes as Naruto stood. We plan to marry, and I would like your blessing. In an instant, the white marble turned gray and the patterns flared abruptly. What is the meaning of this, mother? Before Ria could speak, Naruto once again spoke. It was at my behest that Lady Ria brought me to you, my lord. Ria sighed. My low dash. Silence. In an instant, Zeus Kane morphed into a cylinder of pure celestial bronze and the room filled with the smell of ozone. With a blinding burst of lightning and a deafening roar of thunder, the God King attacked Naruto. But no great explosion or destruction followed, and Zeus was shocked to see Naruto nullify his attack with some sort of black rod. Please, my lord, I mean no disrespect. I have nothing but love for Athena and Aphrodite, and I will pledge my life to Olympus for your blessing. I have no need for dogs. Looking once more into Naruto's eyes, Zeus found himself staring no longer into azure blue, but a rippling red. He watched as Naruto's eyes warped into red ripples with black markings. The eyes of Gia, the king muttered. Naruto lowered his truth-seeking rod and stared into Zeus' eyes. Please, Lord Zeus, just hear me out. Thunder blared from the high heavens as Zeus stood from this throne, and with each step, strikes of lightning tore through the roof of his temple. Soon, gales of high wind ripped off the remnants of the roof and revealed the eye of the hurricane above Olympus. Tendrils of lightning lit up the dark sky and the thunder roared with the deafening intensity. Through the storm, Zeus' voice still echoed with power. So, Gia's champion has returned. The king's eyes flared as lightning coated his entire body. After so many years, you've decided to show yourself. And to have the gall to mock me. I am not here as your enemy, muttered Naruto as thunder clouded his voice. Zeus gave a light scoff. Finally, I will banish you like I did Typhon. A blast of lightning ripped through the air and set the throne room aflame. The floors cracked, and the foundation of Olympus shook as tendrils of electricity seeped through the rocks. The following thunder was a continuous explosion and sent waves deafening shockwaves throughout the mountain. Through the debris and dust, Zeus still saw the eyes of Gia, starting defiantly back at his own. In an instant, Zeus stood face to face to Naruto, and slammed with full force his master bolt onto the latter. Another blast of lightning dug through the foundations and shot down toward the earth, and the world rumbled under the power. With no regard to damage, Zeus attacked again, sending another devastating blast of power toward the earth. Still kin to running away, I see, muttered Zeus as he turned to see Naruto hovering above him. I am not here to fight you, Naruto spoke with an iron voice, but here to meet with you, man to man. Zeus gave a guttural chuckle, and to what do I owe the great mother? Mother. Electricity surged around the king's arm and the power ripped apart the ground beneath. Am I to play host to another of her sons? Thunder roared once more as Zeus flung his arm at Naruto, scorching the air as he lit the skies asunder. With a flash of yellow, Naruto appeared next to the king. I am not one of her sons. Naruto flicked his hand and a winding black chain tangled with Zeus' arm. It constricted around the king's arm and embedded one end of itself into the ground. As he tried to reel back control, another black chain took hold of his remaining arm. With the ends of the chains hammered into the ground, Naruto pulled the other ends, tightly binding Zeus in place. I guess we've met before, but I cannot remember much of my past. Naruto grunted as the God King tugged at the chains. I apologize for any disrespect, but I've come today to only offer my allegiance to Olympus. I will do everything in my power to protect this kingdom, and in return, I ask for your blessing to marry Athena and Aphrodite. You must be mad. I understand that this is far too sudden and preposterous, but please give me the chance to explain to you our situation. I have neither the patience nor the gullibility to listen to your senseless insanity. Naruto felt his chains bend as Zeus channeled lightning throughout his body, nearly melting the chains with its heat. The king's eyes glowed with power as he broke through the chains with a mighty roar. Immediately, Naruto retreated to a safer distance. Just as well that you decided to reveal yourself, monster. The Master Bolt shook with untamed rage as Zeus' power grew to new levels. You may have been safe hiding under the realm of Eastern civilization, but now that you've entered our jurisdiction, I am free to rid the world of your threat. The Master Bolt shone with the light of a dozen suns as Zeus reeled his arm back. But before Zeus could deliver the strike, he felt a piercing pain in his arm. His eyes widened in shock as he found a blade of wind slice into his arm. As ichor gushed from his wound, black chains once again formed around his arm, and he found himself reeling back. Naruto appeared in front of Zeus, hovering above him as he channeled chakra into his hand. With his fist shining in golden chakra, Naruto struck the god in his chest. A shockwave of gale force spread from the connected punch. In an instant, the temple of Zeus shattered and the god himself was forced into the foundation of his mountain. Ichor spilled from the king's mouth as he reeled inside a crater of his making. The chains now covered most of his body, coiling around his limbs and neck like a snake. Struggling to move, he could only watch as Naruto fell from above and stab his truth-seeking rod into the ground next to his head. Staring into the eyes of Gia, Zeus froze. As I said, I cannot remember much of my past, but I can assure you, Zeus, that I was not hiding from you. At the twitch of Zeus' finger, Naruto widened his eyes, and the god grunted as he was forced deeper into the ground. I have in me the concentrated power of a primordial. Even at my current state, I far outclass you in combat. Zeus remained silent as he fought against his restraints. I am sincere when I say that I mean you no ill will. I am here to align myself with Olympus, not because of any politics or protection, but for the simple fact that I am in love with your daughter. Naruto's eyes faded to blue as he spoke. I may not remember much, but I can say that in the millennia that I have lived, I have never been as happy as I am now, and that is entire because of my new family. The dust started to settle, and Naruto felt Zeus' power decrease. For a long time, my old self wanted to end and sealed away all of my power. I was to live once more as a normal human and live out the last of my days. But the fates must have saw an opportunity, because in my human years, I met Athena and Aphrodite. They gave me a life I never thought possible and hold for me a love I do not deserve. I want nothing more than to make them happy, so I do not want them to have to choose between two families. Naruto released the chains from Zeus and the king immediately jumped from the crater, landing a small distance away. What are you saying? The king asked. Naruto smiled. Looks like you're finally listening to me. With a snap of his fingers, the world warped. Zeus found himself once again sitting in his throne, inside his temple, perfectly intact. There was no destruction and the wounds on his body were gone. To the side, he saw Rhea still standing there, giving a sigh. Please don't overreact, Zeus. When she was met with silence, Rhea looked between her son and grandson-in-law. Are you alright, my son? Zeus frowned. What, that all an illusion? My apologies, but I couldn't risk endangering others. Naruto approached the throne, ignoring Zeus' tightening grip on his cane. Now that you're willing to listen to me, we can continue. Resting back on his throne, Zeus sighed. Very well, you have 5 minutes. Smiling at his future father-in-law, thank you. Rhea raised a brow. What just happened? A Father's Love, Chapter 22. The winds echoed across the hallowed halls, almost whispering into Naruto's ears, but seized the moment Zeus planted his cane on the ground. Once again, the air became still and heavy, as if threatened. In stony silence, the king of the gods watched as Naruto stepped to the foot of his throne. As I said before, my lord, it was at my behest that Lady Rhea brought me as a guest. Naruto turned to give the Titaness a small bow, earning a smile. I've recognized the need to speak with you before the situation escalates beyond my control. The king gave the smallest of nods. Continue. I love Athena and Aphrodite. Azure stared once again into electric, unwavering. For the past months, I have been in a relationship with them. We have a family, a home together. Naruto continued, despite the twitch of the king's hand. Our relationship has grown to the point of marriage, and I do not wish for them to hide from their family. And you've come for a blessing. Yes, my lord. Naruto replied, but if that is impossible, I am here to at least notify you. He gave a silent sigh. Ever since the beginning of our relationship, I've known of Athena's anxiety. She is afraid to tell you of our relationship. At the mention of his daughter, the king seemed to soften. I know you will never hurt her, but she fears for me, for our children and for our life together. She wants to keep the happiness we've found intact, and as you know, Athena likes to make plans. Rhea smiled and nodded. Only too well. While I know that she will figure out the best way to tell you, she should not bear this responsibility. The last thing I want is to become a rift between father and child. Naruto paused to see Zeus nod. I've come to ask for your blessing, yes, but to also tell you my intentions. Zeus closed his eyes and sighed, very well. This was not supposed to happen. As I said, I was supposed to live once more as a human and die as a human. But it seems that the fates enjoy their twists and brought me to this path. I met Athena within a year of my powers being sealed, and then I met Aphrodite soon after Athena left. It was as if the fates waited until my immortal self was beyond reproach before they decided to show me a glimpse of happiness. You speak as if there are two of you. Zeus leaned forward to closer observe Naruto. Are you no longer the being I met before? I am a part of who you met before. With pursed lips, he continued, after centuries of isolation and imminent catastrophe, the man you knew decided to take fate into his own hands. He developed a seal that locked away all his powers and memories, isolating them into a small corner in his mind. Effectively, he sealed himself away, and I was who replaced him. His plan was to weaken this body to the point of mortality, and I was to live out my life as a human, never to know of my true origins. If this body were to die, the remnants of my power should dissipate and fade away. But the fates did not allow that to happen. Rhea crossed her arms and watched her son, relieved to see no electricity. My powers awoke after the seal broke and my body regained its immortality. Zeus nodded along. I met the ancient spirit of my former self in my mindscape and he explained to me our situation. By the end, the man you once met decided to pass on and fade away. The God King gave a soft hum at his words. After so many years, he had had enough and left our body to me. And now you come to me, asking for two goddesses' hands in marriage. Naruto stared at the king and nodded, yes. Zeus sneered, then perhaps you haven't changed as much as I imagined. Zeus, there is a reason I brought this man before you. Rhea stepped closer to her son as she turned to gaze to Naruto. While I agree that this situation is preposterous, it may yet be a blessing in disguise for Olympus. Mother! Muttered Zeus with a frown. It is no secret that dark forces stir beneath us. I'm sure you've felt him stir as I have. There will come the day when the Titans will rise from Tartarus, and when that day comes, having the champion of Gia on our side can potentially turn the tide of war. Do you not remember what happened in the last age? Rhea remained silent as Zeus turned to Naruto. The so-called dark forces do not compare to the threat of Gia or her champion. It was neither the Titans nor giants that ended the last age, it was you. Naruto steeled his gaze and remained firm. You are correct. I am powerless against you. You have in you the concentrated power of Gia and you alone can end civilization as we know it. We all had to watch you last time. Us, the Norse, the Egyptians, and all the others had to sit and watch as the Earth Mother ordered you to destroy. Thousands of years were erased in one day. But this time he is on our side, added Rhea. We don't know that. Zeus never tore his eyes away from Naruto. The power of Gia is not so easily controlled, even by us, much less a human. Kronos I can handle, but I will not risk Athena and Aphrodite's safety on a time bomb. You're right. Naruto spoke, I can't control it, because not even my old self could control it. But we can change that. I do have some memories of my former self, and I do know that he failed to control the entity inside us because he couldn't handle the raw emotion it evokes. The seal is the only thing preventing the beast from destroying my mind, but there is a way around that. What way? Asked Rhea. Athena and Aphrodite have shown me that they are able to ease the pain of memories tied their domains, to suppress the emotional stress caused by memories of love or war. With their help, I will be able to confront the beast without destroying my mind. What do you plan to do? Rhea asked again. It has the power of a primordial, you won't be able to destroy it. I won't destroy it, but I will weaken it. Naruto stared back at the king. During my time, the beast was never whole. My predecessor, the first human to seal it into himself, found a way to divide it into 9 separate entities. I will do that again, recreate the 9 bijou that I once knew. The mother of the gods nodded. That could work. Naruto saw the unchanging expression of Zeus and nodded. It will work. Even if the beast is split into 9, will you be able to control them? The God King leaned forward to stare down at the man. On their own, they still possess enough power to wipe out entire civilizations. You will have multiplied one world-ending threat to 9. These 9 beasts will not be mindless like their complete form. Each will have a personality much more developed than the beast and can be reasoned with. Most importantly, it seems to weaken the link between Gia and her champion. In the last age, Gia never tried to use the 9 beasts to destroy civilization. She never did until it was whole. I think we can safely assume that by splitting it into 9 beings we remove the looming threat of Gia unleashing her power on a whim. And how confident are you about your abilities? Zeus sighed as his shoulders slumped with exasperation. Your predecessor failed to control the beast for the last few millennia. You're telling me that with only Athena and Aphrodite's powers you'd be able to defeat it? You are underestimating Gia's power and very much overestimating your own. The beast and I are linked, we share the same pool of energy. As eons pasted, we have merged beyond jailer and prisoner. There is a kind of entanglement, a kind of symbiosis. Its powers are not so much its own anymore, I can access it as much as it could. Naruto closed his eyes to see Athena and Aphrodite. Its greatest and only weapon against me is its wild ferocity. It is a mass of pure energy, of violent, raw emotion. Whenever I am near, it threatens to tear my mind apart and swallow my identity. It is a battle between one human mind and the collective power of the primordial of the earth. The king stared at Naruto's lowered head, his voice stony and booming. You will lose. The biggest difference between myself and my former self is not age or experience, but family. Naruto raised his head and looked back at Zeus. He couldn't tame the beast because he was alone. He was without love, family, or even emotion. Naruto smiled. I don't remember who it was that told me this, but I believe that when a person has something important they need to protect, that is when they can become truly strong. But Rhea smiled and rested against her son's throne. He never had anything to protect, but I do. I have Athena and Aphrodite, and I am a father of 2 girls. They are the people I must protect, and they will empower me to subdue the beast. Zeus scoffed. It seems that you've lost much more than your memories. You're now a child with the strength of a primordial. Your immaturity and naivety are far more dangerous than the looming threat of Gia. The moment you snap, whether it be because of your daughters or of mine, you will destroy the world. Rhea looked at her son but remained silent. Naruto ironed his gaze and stared into Zeus' arrogant stare. Well, then that is all the more reason to separate the beast now. The king scoffed again, as if I have a choice in the matter. Indeed, muttered Rhea before she turned to Naruto. When will you attempt this? Before the wedding. Zeus raised a brow. And have I given my blessing? Naruto stared up at Zeus. It is as you said, you don't have a choice in the matter. Rhea winced at his words and glanced at her stoic son. I've come for your blessing, and if I don't have it, I've at least notified you about us. The burden is no longer on Athena or Aphrodite's shoulders. Naruto stepped closer to the king, standing at the foot of his throne. My loyalty is given to Athena and Aphrodite, so Olympus can rely on my help if it is ever needed. Regardless of your opinion on our marriage, you will be my father-in-law and you will have my respect. I don't need you to welcome me into the family, nor do I expect any sort of affection from you, but I hope you will give Athena and Aphrodite the love and treatment they deserve." All was silent in the throne room as the two powerful immortals locked eyes in presence. "Very well." Rhea gave a sigh of relief at her son's words. "I give you my blessing." It was obvious that Athena would one day find it in herself to desire a partner. The king muttered with a tone that sounded familiar to Naruto, "At the very least you are not one of my bumbling sons." "Rest assured, this is my blessing given under extreme duress, but mother does speak sense." Zeus softened as he looked at his smiling mother. "The addition of your power to Olympus will assure us victory against the Titans or even the giants. Perhaps next time Typhon escapes, I won't have to be the one to confront it." Naruto smiled. "Once I marry Athena and Aphrodite, Olympus will be my family. I always protect my own." Zeus gave a nod. "Wonderful!" happily exclaimed Rhea, proudly smiling at her son. "I'm sure Athena and Aphrodite will be delighted." Naruto smiled as Zeus added, "Where are they now?" "A June wedding," began Hera with a smirk. "A fine choice, my dears." The queen ignored Demeter's scoff and snapped her fingers. A golden scroll was conjured and hovered about her. A golden quill manifested between her fingers as she began to list out the wedding necessities, paying no mind to the gawking children below her. Hestia sighed and weaved a thin layer of mist over the children's eyes, making a note to remind Athena and Aphrodite to have the godly talk with their children. Firstly, location. Hera smiled at the two brides. "Where shall this monumental event be hosted?" Aphrodite rubbed a finger on her chin and thought, "I honestly haven't thought about it." She shrugged and looked over to Athena. "What do you think?" "We have many choices," muttered the goddess of wisdom, "but not necessarily a single correct one." "We can always go back to Greece," added Demeter. All the previous divine marriages had been officiated back home. Hera pursed her lips. "I would suggest Athens, but that may stir some age-old conflicts." Athena crossed her arms and scoffed. "It is no longer the place we once knew." "And I was going to suggest Rome." Demeter flinched at Athena's harsh glare. "But that won't work either." "We can just do it here," suggested Hestia. "New York is quite nice in June and we can fit quite a few guests in Central Park." Athena nodded after a few seconds of thought. "Yes, that will work. Our ancient customs do dictate that weddings happen at the groom's property." "Sure," chirped Aphrodite, "the location doesn't really matter to me." Hera smiled. "Excellent." She added the location to her golden scroll as she added, "It will be easy to plan this so close to home. I'll order the four winds to clear the skies on the day, leaving only a soft summer breeze. I'm sure Apollo can time his chariot accordingly, and it is about high time we uncork Dionysus' cellar." Hestia winced. "He won't be happy about that, especially because he wouldn't be allowed to drink any of it." Hera shrugged. "It's not our fault he decided to sleep with that nymph." Counting her fingers, the queen continued, moving on. Her sisters smiled at her obvious enthusiasm. It had been a long while since Hera last planned a wedding. "All 9 muses shall sing at the wedding, perhaps an accompaniment by Mozart or Beethoven. I'm sure Brother Hades can lend out their souls for one day." Hera hummed and looked toward her mother and sister. "Now, for the feast." Rhea smiled. "Hestia and I shall cook." "My hunters will provide the meat," added Artemis with a thinly veiled hunger. "Just let me know what you will need a few days in advance." "It doesn't matter what it is, we'll hunt it in time for the feast." Athena smirked. "How about calamari made from the kraken?" Artemis' eyes sparkled, but Hestia quickly interjected, "No, you're not hunting your uncle Poseidon's pet." Seeing the huntress pout, Hestia sighed, "But I can ask him to donate a tentacle or two," the eldest Olympian muttered. "I'm sure they will grow back." "Wonderful," chirped Hera. "Now, I'll let the two of you decide on your own chariots." "All right, what else is there?" "If we're going with ancient Greek customs, then we'll need a couple of children helpers." Rhea smiled at Annabeth and Lacey, "And I know just who to hire." Hestia lifted the mist from the girls. "So girls, you two want to help out?" "Can we?" Lacey jumped up with a large grin. "Me, I want to." Annabeth nodded along. "What can we do?" Rhea giggled at the girls. Annabeth can handle preparing the nuptial bath as well as being her mother's helper. The Titaness smiled at the girl. You'll be the one to collect the river water for the bath and help with the sacrifices, although we can just ignore that last part. There is no point in burning gifts when we're all attending anyway. Annabeth gave a soft laugh. I have a lot of questions, but either way, I can do it. Athena smiled and kissed her daughter's hair as Rhea turned to Lacey. Lacey, dear, you can be the bread girl. Lacey lost a tad of her excitement. A bread girl? Hestia laughed. You'll be the one to hand out pieces of bread to the guests. This is a tradition to keep if you want a healthy baby brother or sister in the future. Lacey's eyes widened and sparkled at the thought of a baby sibling. And you get to wear a pretty crown, too. I'll do it. Aphrodite cooed and hugged her daughter close. Thank you, baby. Hera reached the bottom of her list and sighed, but now for the difficult finale, telling your father. Athena sighed as Aphrodite pursed her lips, both glancing at each other. I must say that there is no simple way about this scenario. Knowing my husband, and I do, any sort of sugarcoating will just add to his annoyance. Might I suggest a direct approach, give him the facts straight and without changes? Hera shook her head. He will definitely be angry at first and it may take a while, but he'll eventually listen to you. Hestia placed a gentle hand on Aphrodite's shoulder and gave her a smile. Perhaps we can all go to the king. Having all of us there may proffer some good grace. I don't think so, added Demeter. Knowing our brother, he'd just see it as all of us acting against him. We don't need him to see this as a rally behind this one man. Athena nodded. Aunt Demeter is correct. We should not directly confront father about this. A surge of memories flooded Rhea's mind as she felt her parted presence return. Well, she muttered as all her family turned to her, I'm afraid it's too late for that. What do you mean? Athena asked with widened eyes. Rhea gestured to the front door. See for yourself. Immediately, Athena placed Annabeth in Aphrodite's arms and stood to face the entrance. A billion thoughts filtered through her mind as her gleaming gray eyes stared at the opening door, and a billion more came and gone as a breeze of ozone air seeped into Rhea's home. Aphrodite's voice fell into a void of silence as dread sunk into the goddess of wisdom as scenarios of her love's demise flashed before her eyes. Calm down, Athena. Rhea wrapped an arm around her granddaughter with a smile. Everything is fine. The God King towered over his mother and Naruto as he stepped through the modest entrance, his divinity clashing with the mortal house. Athena stared up at a pair of electric blue eyes and found their usual warmth and love. Daughter, came the booming voice of the God King. Father, she whispered as her mind scrambled to fathom the slight smile on his face. How? You found someone lacking in common sense and wisdom. Zeus towered over Athena as he stepped into his mother's home. While I will admit that I've long foreseen this day, I expected you to find someone more like yourself. The last thing I expected today was to have an insolent immortal suitor confronting me in my own throne room. What? Aphrodite held both her little girls in her arms as she stared at the scene, her eyes widening as Naruto walked in from behind the king. She quickly held her daughters back before they could run to their father and casted a thin veil of mist over them before they could cry out. Athena stared at her love, almost confused. What did you do? I'm sorry, whispered Naruto, trying his best to ignore the legion of staring immortals behind his fiancée. The burden should not be yours to carry. Athena failed to respond. There was no good way to go about it, but I figured a man-to-man conversation was my best bet. You should not, muttered Athena as she trailed off in thought. I cannot say I am surprised by your reaction, Athena. Zeus' voice silenced the room. But do you think your happiness means so little to me? Athena looked up at her father. Pardon me? The king sighed. I never expected you to be forever alone. I've always known that one day you'll find a suitable companion. Zeus gave her a soft smile. Out of all my daughters, you were the only one who never made me worry. You are far more capable than me. Naruto smiled at Athena's shock. If you were to ever decide on a husband, no doubt you'd already thought about billions of possible outcomes. So, if this is the case, I am willing to accept. I whispered Athena as she stepped closer to her father, don't know what to say. There is nothing to say. Zeus placed a gentle hand on Athena's head, my daughter's happiness is and always will be my greatest concern, and if you are sure about this man, I will give you my blessing. Athena finally smiled, thank you, father. Aphrodite stared at her lover and giggled at his wink. A huge weight was lifted from her shoulders and she happily held her two girls close to her chest. The goddess of love and the goddess of wisdom smiled at their fiancé. He had never failed to surprise them. Zeus glanced at a stunned Artemis and sent her a stare, but don't you get any funny ideas, Artemis? Rhea hid her giggle at the sight of the widened eyes of her daughters and granddaughters. So, where were we? A Father's Love, Chapter 23. The home of Mother Rhea held a sacred and singular position for the Olympians. Much like Hestia's hearth, it was a place of peace and harmony. Under no circumstances could there be any prejudice or arguments that may upset the matriarch of Olympus. It was one of very few places that the elder gods could gather for leisure, in which old feuds could be momentarily forgotten and old bonds could strengthen. But alas, it was often filled with awkward silences. Please have a seat, father. Athena led the king of gods into the living room and followed closely behind. It was a sight to see, the king of Olympus sitting upon a simple sofa with a floral print. Have some tea. Zeus ignored the stares of his family and gladly enjoyed his mother's tea. No need to stand on ceremony, this is not a council meeting. He smiled at his wife, come join me, my queen. You surprise me, husband. Hera assumed her position next to the king. A mere moment ago I was contemplating whether or not to tell you of such a revelation. A small smirk adorned her flawless face as she gave her fellow goddesses a bemused stare. Order knows it was a pressing concern. The king merely smiled before turning to his daughters. Do take a seat. We must not waste the treats mother prepared for us. Artemis swiftly sat down and was joined by Demeter and Hestia, the three of them taking the sofa to the right of the king and queen. All three stared at the remaining seats as Athena and Aphrodite pulled a shakily standing Naruto alone. Never had any of the immortals seen the goddesses of war and love seem so nervous, but they all waited until the seats were full. So, started Hera as she looked between Naruto and Zeus, how did this happen? Rhea interrupted before either could respond, that is a story for tomorrow. Let us enjoy this wonderful day in leisure. Hera looked at her mother as Zeus and Naruto nodded. Very well. Silence reigned as Naruto politely stared at his knees. Rhea hid a smile as a giggle nearly escaped her lips despite the awkward mood. She had wondered if she'd made the correct decision in bringing her new great-grandson-in-law to confront her son, but the day yielded a result far beyond her greatest hope. Never in millennia would the mother of the gods imagine a day in which her youngest son would be welcoming a son-in-law in her home. Hi! Suddenly, a loud and cheerful chirp cut through the silence. Naruto, Aphrodite, and Athena watched with widened eyes as Lacey bounced and skipped over to the king of Olympus, giggling and twinkling as she stared up at the towering god of thunder. My name is Lacey. Who are you? Zeus regarded the tiny demigoddess with a raised brow. The small child was staring up at him without the slightest hint of fear or concern, bouncing on her feet and giggling with the innocence of the world. The king could hardly remember the last time he'd seen such a carefree expression before him. A bright smile quickly overcame his lips as he leaned closer to the small child. My name is Zeus, he said in a tone that was nearly entirely reserved for Athena and Artemis. I am your grandfather. I knew it. Lacey's giggles and bounces sent stunned and astounded smiles across the room. Yay, I've always wanted a grandpa. Zeus opened his arms and Lacey quickly jumped into them. The king gave a joyous laugh as he cradled his small granddaughter lithely on his arm. You must the happiest child I have ever met. You're even more giddy and joyous than your mother when she was your age. He chuckled as Lacey giggled. But just as adorable. Hera smiled, and much more innocent. "What is happening?" asked Artemis with a soft whisper. Aphrodite was stunned silent and couldn't answer. In an instant all her worries and horrors faded away, and she found herself mirroring her daughter's white smile. Many a time had the goddess of love wondered how her family would react to her little princess. Even by her children's standard, Lacey was beautiful and adorable, but never had she expected Zeus to be so taken with Lacey. Hestia smiled and gently held Aphrodite's arm. "Lacey is as charming as her mother." Demeter playfully rolled her eyes. Zeus always had a weakness for his daughters and granddaughters. "Annie." Lacey waved to her sister, comfortably bouncing in her grandpa's arms. "Come here." Annabeth slowly approached the gigantic god. "Hi, my name is Annabeth." Zeus looked down at the miniature version of Athena and smiled at the confidence and intelligence behind her piercing gray eyes, already feeling a sense of pride. As expected of a child of his favorite daughter, she was hesitant to approach him, no doubt already sensing something different. "Hello, young lady." Zeus leaned close again, proud that Annabeth didn't back away, but instead stood strong. "You have your mother's eyes." The girl couldn't help but smile. She loved her likeness to her beloved mother. "And her hair. I don't know why she decided to become a brunette, but you look exactly like she did when she was a child." Demeter smiled, a mini war muffin. For once, Athena didn't react to her childhood nickname and just remained stunned at the sight. "Thank you, Grandpa." The king gave another rare smile as he scooped Annabeth into his arms. "You're welcome, little princess." He gave a joyous laugh at Annabeth's giggle. "Oh, you're a strong one, aren't you? You'll become a fierce and intelligent warrior, just like your mother." Annabeth took the compliment in stride. "Yep." Naruto smiled and laughed at the sight. The father of two was no stranger to Greek mythology, a misnomer, he knew, and was well aware of the reputation Zeus had garnered over the eons. Magnanimous and vindictive, yes, but was also a benevolent father to his daughters. He'd half expected the king of gods to take a liking to his granddaughters. It was one of the few assurances he felt before confronting the king. But never did he expect Zeus to take such an instant liking to his little girls. "An architect?" asked Zeus with a fond smile. "A fine aspiration, my child." Annabeth beamed. "I've read almost every book in the architecture department of the New York Public Library. Give me another few years, Grandpa. I'll design something amazing." "I'm sure you will." The king chuckled as he bounced his granddaughters on his knees. "If you're as talented as your mother, I'll have a few projects for you to handle once you're of age." The girl brightened and nodded. "Our family is rather old-fashioned, though. We prefer designs from the classical era." "Do you know what that is?" "Yeah, like the designs from ancient Athens." Zeus smiled and nodded as Hera gave Athena a smirk. "The olive doesn't fall far from the tree." "What about you, little princess?" Zeus asked the ever-smiling Lacey. "What do you want to do when you're older?" The girl tilted her head in thought, making every smile at her cuteness. "I don't know," she said with a small shrug. "There are so many things I want to do." Annabeth rolled her eyes. "Lace, training dragons isn't a real job." Lacey pouted. "I know." "Well," muttered Artemis as Aphrodite quickly gave her a stern stare, "it could be. I mean, it won't be cute dragons like the ones you see in that children's movie, but it could be a job." Lacey's eyes lit up. "Really, Auntie Artie?" "Yes, of course. "No," curtly replied Aphrodite. "No, no way." "Why not?" asked a pouting Lacey. "Yeah, why not?" Artemis added, almost glaring at the goddess of love. "No daughter of mine would go sniffing deer excrement with your Girl Scouts." Before Artemis could retort, "You have Girl Scouts, Auntie Artie?" Lacey was positively beaming as she bounced excitedly on Zeus' knee. "I always wanted to join the Girl Scouts." The goddess of the hunt smirked at Aphrodite before turning to her adorable niece. "Really?" "Yeah." Lacey chirped. Do you have a lot of animals, too? We do. Artemis held back a laugh as Aphrodite's jaw dropped. We have packs of cute dogs, dozens of pet foxes, a team of falcons, and I have a family of reindeer, too. As if her mother's genes were acting up, Lacey's eyes sparkled in the light. We have campfires, campfire stories, and we make s'mores every night. Lacey turned to her parents. Can I go? She asked as Naruto was busy holding a trembling Aphrodite. Please, 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 please. As if to add insult to injury, Artemis continued, but Lacey, there are no boys allowed in the camp. Are you okay with that? Aphrodite gave a silent scream as Lacey scoffed, oh yeah, I don't care about stupid boys. Artemis' godly symbol nearly appeared over Lacey's head as she seriously considered making the girl her new champion. Annie is the one who has a crush on boys, I don't. Shut up, Lace. A boisterous laugh erupted from the king as he hugged the two small girls close. He was quickly joined by Demeter and Hestia as Artemis sent Aphrodite the most victorious grin of her immortal life. Even Hera gave a joyous giggle as she leaned against her husband, smiling at the two small demigoddesses who effortlessly brought so much joy to her family. From the side, Rhea watched her family with the brightest smile she'd had in the last few centuries. She placed a caring hand on Naruto's shoulder. Thank you, Naruto. Naruto shook his head and smiled up at his grandmother-in-law. No, thank you, Lady Rhea. All the while Athena observed her family, her complete family, as emotions filled her mind. It was one of the rare times in history in which the all-powering gray eyes of Athena were welling with tears of joy. Joy. It was surreal watching her daughters so seamlessly bond with her family. This was the best possible outcome of all her calculations, one that was nearly impossible to achieve if she'd acted alone. Lacey can warm up to anybody, whispered Naruto softly, breaking Athena from her thoughts, but it's harder for Annabeth. She nodded in agreement. Perhaps like she was with you, she can also sense her kinship with her grandfather. He gave a low chuckle. I have never seen her warm up so quickly to someone, much less the king of gods. Well, perhaps she can sense something, but it might also be because when it comes to daughters, you and my father are very alike. Athena smirked at Naruto's surprise. Believe it or not, he is just as, if not even more protective of us than you are with the girls. Annabeth can recognize the caring eyes of a father when she sees them, she said as she turned to see her giggling daughter. She sees them every day with you. Naruto smiled and wrapped an arm around Athena. Thank goodness for that. She tightly held his hand. Naruto squeezed her hand back, kissing the top of her head. Both were silently in peace and eternally thankful for the other. Like so, the day passed, and Apollo's chariot set beyond the horizon. As Artemis' chariot illuminated the night sky, dinner was about finished. It was feast unlike any in the human world had ever had. One that was crafted by the most skilled culinary masters in existence, Rhea, Hestia, and Hera. It had everything, from Hestia's warm and soothing home cooking, Hera's divine-class luxurious delights, to Mother Rhea's, who taught her daughters everything they knew, all-encompassing fusion cuisine. It was a worldly and otherworldly tour of the senses, right in the middle of a New York suburb. Demeter stared at the full moon in the sky. Is Zoe Nightshade pulling your chariot for you, Artemis? She asked as she dabbed her lips with a golden napkin. Artemis? Asked the youngest goddess at the table. Aphrodite sighed. Wipe your mouth, Artemis. The huntress shot the goddess of love a glare before indulging once more in her Aunt Hestia's sweet potato pie. Around the table, only her and Lacey were still eating, and it was as if the little girl was trying and failing to beat her aunt, stuffing her face with pie and her grandmother's beef Wellington. I don't understand how she is still underweight, muttered Annabeth as she rubbed her full belly. She eats at least twice as much as I do. Diet's genetics, answered Athena, sipping on a glass of champagne. True, but she got her appetite from her father, added Aphrodite, smiling as she leaned against Naruto. I only eat that much when it's ramen. Naruto chuckled. I think she got it from her aunt. Artemis smiled and ruffled Lacey's hair, already taking a huge liking to her little niece. I think it's adorable, said Rhea as Hestia nodded along. It's rare that a daughter of Aphrodite could eat with such disregard. If I recall correctly, Aphrodite used to eat plenty as well. Hera could remember when the goddess of love first stepped from sea foam, beautiful, naked and hungry. Almost as much as Artemis now. Perhaps, but then I grew up, added Dite, giving the goddess of gluttony a side glance. The sound of moving chair halted the conversation as Zeus stood from the head of the table. He smiled and patted his new granddaughters' heads before he spoke. I think I'll enjoy my coffee on the terrace. The king looked at Naruto sitting opposite to himself. Please come join me, Naruto. The immortals stilled as Naruto nodded and stood. Sure, sir. Giving Athena and Aphrodite's hands each a tight squeeze, he joined his future father-in-law. Despite his confidence during the confrontation, he'd since calmed and the adrenaline was gone. The towering father of his new family looked every inch the all-powering ruler he was. And with a soft clink, the terrace door closed behind him and he was left alone with Zeus. The king sipped on his coffee and sighed in delight. This has been a pleasant surprise. Naruto joined the king and leaned against the railing. It has been a great day. I've never had a family gathering like this before in my life. He glanced at Zeus. My whole life. It is a rare occurrence for us as well, I assure you of that. Zeus hummed at the muffled laughter and giggles behind the closed door. I don't quite remember the last time I've heard so much laughter and joy at the dinner table. It usually is just my queen and I in our temple, and the conversations run dry after millennia together. He looked at Naruto. This is quite the pleasant change. Naruto smiled. You and Lady Hera can join us for dinner anytime you like. Zeus gave a guttural chuckle as he looked back at the moon. You really have changed since the last time we met. Yes, you mentioned that before. Naruto frowned. I'm afraid I don't remember. You wouldn't. The king sighed. I don't think you even knew it was me, but I knew who you were. It was centuries ago, during the early fall of the Roman Empire. That son of yours was terrorizing the Eastern Roman Empire and had desecrated many of my and my son's temples. Naruto winced at the mention of one of his more violent sons. While all is fair in love and war, temples are sacred for us, and I sent a bolt of lightning to end your son's life. Added Naruto, unsure of how to respond. But you stopped it and even hurled it back at me. The king had a dangerous gleam in his eyes as he glanced at his son-in-law again. Very few people had ever managed such a feat. Sorry, but I am very protective of family. Naruto stood tall next to Zeus. I don't remember much of Attila, but he was my son and I will protect him, despite his rather unsavory reputation. Ha! Zeus laughed. The fact that Attila is your son must have earned you Athena's favor in some way. She hated the Roman Empire so much that she would have saved him herself had you not intervened. Really? Athena's hatred for the Romans is something I'm sure you'll eventually confront, but that is a problem for another day. Zeus turned to face Naruto fully. The pressing matter at hand is the primordial of power you have sealed within you. Every day it lays dormant is a day earned for civilization, not only for humankind, but for the divine as well. The last time Gia made use of her champion, she only used it to destroy the bronze men, but I'm afraid this time she has a border scope in mind. Even the gods? Yes, undoubtedly. Zeus tapped his foot. Darkness lurks beneath our feet and evil stirs in the depths of Tartarus. Thralls of old ages are united in their hatred of the victors, and they constantly seek our destruction. If the titans and giants are to join forces under Gia's banner, we will be dangerously outclassed. The sky rumbled. War is inevitable, and if we're alone, we will undoubtedly lose. As I said, I am very protective of family. Naruto glanced at the bright and colorful dining room filled with laughter. I will do everything in my power to protect them. I know you will, but all that is for naught if Gia could spontaneously take control of you. Naruto frowned and nodded. I must concede that your plan of separating the beast into multiple entities is our most probable path to victory. Naruto nodded. We must make haste, time is of the essence. Speak with Athena and Aphrodite, have them aid in any way they can. I will. But let me be very clear, the king said as they locked eyes, should this plan fail, it will immediately accelerate our imminent doom.
Naruto slowly nodded. I understand.
Zeus turned to face the bright window to the dining room. I have become very happy with the new additions to my family. Your daughters remind me of my own, and for their sake, Olympus will do their utmost to aid you in your plight. Anything you need to better the chances of subduing the beast, let me know. Naruto gave a soft smile. Thank you, my lord.
Speak nothing of it. I've always been weak to my daughters and granddaughters.
Yes, but I didn't expect you to two demigoddesses with such affection.
Zeus smirked as he reached for the door. That's because they are not demigoddesses.
His smirk grew at Naruto's surprise. You're no human, you're a primordial. Your daughters hold the potential to become extremely powerful, immortal goddesses. Naruto's eyes widened. I just need to think of the proper domains for them to command. But alas, it is also a problem for another day. The king chuckled and rejoined the dinner, leaving Naruto flabbergasted outside. Alright, started the king as he polished the last of his mother's famous coconut ice cream, I believe it is time for us to retire for the night.
Hera nodded with a smile. Yes, I agree. Thank you for the amazing dinner, mother.
Rhea stood to hug her youngest son and youngest daughter, kissing them each of the cheek.
We should do this again soon.
I'll hold you to that, dear.
Hera looked at her middle sister. Are you coming back with us, sister?
No, replied the goddess of harvest. I was going back to Persephone tonight, but I think I'll stay here with mother for tonight. The queen smiled. All right then.
Have a good night.
Naruto, Athena and Aphrodite stood and smiled at the king and queen.
Have a good night. Grandpa.
Zeus stopped and welcomed Lacey as she shot into his arms.
You'll come to visit again, right?
The king nearly melted at her sparkling puppy eyes. Of course.
Grandpa will be back with treats and presents.
He hugged Lacey and ruffled a grinning Annabeth's hair. And next time I'll bring you both to Grandpa and Grandma's home. I'm sure you'll both love it. Annabeth and Lacey both widely grinned.
Okay. Naruto smiled as Zeus handed Lacey to him. Alright, say goodnight to Grandma and Grandpa. Good night. Good night, Grandma, Grandpa.
Hera smiled. Such good manners. Naruto smiled and nodded at the queen. Zeus gave Naruto a look as he made his way to the front door. Take a few days to organize your thoughts and to discuss a plan.
Athena and Aphrodite gave their own concerned looks as Naruto nodded. Come meet me again on Olympus when you're ready to proceed. What are you talking about? Asked Hera with a raised brow.
Zeus smiled at his wife. I'll tell you on the way home. Without another word, the king and queen of Olympus left their mother's home. Demeter stretched her arms and smiled at her mother.
This is a nice place, mother.
It's smaller than your penthouse, but much cozier. She ran a delicate hand through her golden hair. I might actually like having dinner here more than in the grand hall. She added, I'll bring Persephone here next time. Rhea smiled as she sipped on her coffee. You girls can stay over anytime you want. If that's the case, we'll have to prepare much more food. Hestia smiled as she watched Artemis polish off the remaining ice cream and sticky pudding. Rhea held her arms out to Annabeth and Lacey and laughed when they quickly ran to her. How about you girls? She asked as she hugged them close.
Want to have a sleepover?
Sure.
Chirped Annabeth before she looked at Naruto. Can we, Dad?
Naruto nodded with a smile. Of course you can.
Can we make popcorn and watch a movie?
Lacey buzzed for the 1000th time as she hugged Rhea's arm. How to Train Your Dragon 2 just came out.
Whatever you want, sweetie.
You should stay over too, Artemis. Demeter snickered as the goddess of the hunt finished her dessert.
You'll fall into a food coma soon. Artemis gave a large, satisfied grin as she nodded.
I'd love to. Then we'll leave you all be, said Naruto, holding onto Athena and Aphrodite's hands. It's been a long day,
So I think we'll turn in for the night. Ria smiled and nodded, of course. Get some rest. Naruto held his loves close and kissed their heads, shall we?
Yes, replied Athena as she led Naruto away.
I'm quite tired. But Aphrodite didn't budge. Dite?
The goddess of love heatedly stared at her daughter and Artemis.
Real dragons aren't this cute, Lacey.
Artemis wrapped her arms around Lacey as the girl showed her a picture of the dragon Toothless. Well, maybe some of the hatchlings could be considered cute, but they grow really quickly. In a matter of weeks, they turn into huge monsters the size of commercial planes.
Even if they're huge, they could still be cute. What other animals do you like?
Lacey tilted her head again, making Artemis hug her closer.
I like kitties and doggies, too. Ooh, and ponies and bears. Artemis laughed. You'll have a lot of fun at my camp. We have so many dogs and cats, and I can teach you how to ride a horse, too.
Most of the girls there are older than you and your sister, but they are all very nice and you will make a lot of friends.
That sounds so fun. Aphrodite calmly turned to a nervous-looking Naruto and amused Athena. You two go on ahead. I have to stay and protect my legacy.
Dite, muttered Naruto softly. Just think of it like the girls joining the Girl Scouts. She won't admit it, but Athena nearly flinched when Aphrodite turned to glare at her.
Come, Aphrodite. It's not like Artemis would have them hunt monsters.
No way in Tartarus would my daughters join those dear poop sniffers.
Athena rolled her eyes. Do as you please. Naruto gave Aphrodite one more kiss. I see you later at home.
Aphrodite smacked Naruto's butt before she made her way to her daughter.
Athena sighed again. This has been too long a day.
Naruto could scarcely believe that less than a day had gone by since the morning. It felt as if weeks had gone since he'd last slept, and the welcome sight of his bed turned his body to jelly. But with great determination and will, he managed a quick shower before changing into his sleepwear. He could already feel the crisp coolness of his sheets and the warmth of his comforter before a pair of slender arms wrapped themselves around his waist. The delightful scent of lavender filled his senses and he tenderly caressed her hands, until he felt them tremble. Athena, he whispered as he turned around in her embrace.
What's wrong?
You've made a habit of exceeding my expectations. Wavering gray eyes stared into his own as she rested against his chest. I've made countless projections in my mind regarding how to handle my father, and not even in my last contingencies do I have you confront him alone. Naruto placed a gentle hand on her cheek, and she leaned into his touch.
I couldn't risk losing you. I'm sorry, Athena. He wrapped an arm around her and held tight.
I didn't want to worry you and Dite.
But it is time I finally take some responsibility for myself. Don't say it like you burden us. I don't mean it that way. I mean the burden of telling your father shouldn't be yours to bear.
It's not fair to you or Dite to have to stand between your two families.
The last thing I want to be is to become a rift between father and child.
He softly kissed her head and combed his fingers through her hair. If I'm to be your husband, then I can't idly stand by and let you carry everything.
But what if he killed you?
Even saying those words sent a chill down Athena's spine. Impossible, he whispered, pausing until she looked into his eyes. You may not have noticed, but my powers are returning at an incredible pace. They are focused and concentrated now, and I was certain that he wouldn't have been able to harm me.
Athena quickly deduced the situation. So you're now at full power?
Nearly, but still enough. Naruto swallowed and rested his forehead against hers. I am still in a position where I pose an invisible threat of everyone around me, but I now control enough of my powers that it can be used as a bargaining chip. I simply gave your father an offer he'd be foolish to refuse. Confidence and assertiveness are often found in the greatest of heroes, but less so in the fortunate. She kissed him tenderly in his lips. Much as I respect those who could outmaneuver me, please tell me the next time you do something so reckless. Naruto nodded. I promise, he whispered as he returned with a kiss.
From now on, we'll make these decisions together. She whispered, I can't lose you, Naruto. I won't ever let you lose me.
He whispered against her lips, from now on, you're stuck with me.
I love you. I love you, too. A Father's Love, Chapter 24. In the past year, their family room finally became a family room.
In the small, warm, and cozy space, whether it be Athena's arts and crafts in the morning, Naruto's homemade snacks in the afternoon, or Aphrodite's movie nights, they would be together. The once sparsely filled mantle now held memories of their precious new life together. Pictures of Halloween, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, and birthdays. It had become their hearth, a warm, nurturing place with only peace, love, and laughter. But sometimes, also family meetings.
Is there no other way? Aphrodite softly glanced at Naruto and Athena. Anything else?
Athena sighed as she closed her eyes, I'm afraid not.
But Dite started, this is crazy. Athena could only nod in silence. This is the only way, Dite.
Naruto welcomed Aphrodite into his arms, kissing the top of her head as lovingly as he could. The longer we idle, the more time we give Gia.
We cannot let her take control of me again. The moment she does, it'd be over.
He tightened his arms around her as he felt her flinch. This is dangerous and reckless, but it has the best odds we're going to get.
And Naruto won't be alone.
Athena shone with confidence and power.
We will be there, too. This won't be the first time we've used our powers this way. We've soothed the memories of the other Naruto once before with minimal effort or difficulty.
I imagine this would be a much more complicated endeavor, but it's logical to assume it will work similarly to before.
Aphrodite forlornly nodded, how much time do we have to prepare?
Father has ordered a barrier ring to be constructed in the Nevada desert.
Apollo and Hephaestus are personally handling it. Naruto frowned, do they know about what we're doing? No, Athena answered, Father gave them no explanation and they know better than to ask.
They've been tasked to finish in 3 days' time.
So soon? Asked Dite, holding Naruto tighter. Athena nodded, the sooner the better. Naruto sighed, what do we need to do to prepare? Nothing. 3 days won't amount to much. We should take this time to calm ourselves and mentally prepare. This will be more emotionally and mentally taxing than likely anything we've done before in our lives.
Athena reached for Naruto's hand, we need to rest and relax.
Naruto pulled Athena close and hugged both his goddesses tightly. He gave a deep sigh.
After this, he began, when this mess is finally over, we're getting married. He felt them nod against his chest, and we're taking a long honeymoon.
Athena smiled, agreed.
We have to at least spend a month in Paris, mumbled Dite against his shirt, then maybe a few weeks in Monaco.
Prague could be fun as well. I'm partial to Europe.
It has been a while since I visited our old capitals.
Naruto chuckled and kissed each of his beloved's head, we'll go wherever we want to go. Do whatever we want to do.
Yes, whispered Athena, forever.
Aphrodite smiled and nodded, forever. Together. Come on, Annie.
Lacey giggled as she ran out the front door, her toothless backpack flailing from behind.
We're going to be late.
Annabeth calmly followed her hyper-sister, you can't be late to Disneyland, Lace. She sighed as she tried to act beyond her years, and if you're this hyper now, you really shouldn't have any more sugar when we get there. I don't want to chase you around the park. Lacey jumped into her car seat and stuck her tongue out at Annabeth, I'm going to get the biggest cotton candy cone ever. Annabeth shivered and looked up at her father, please don't buy her the big one. That thing is almost bigger than her.
Naruto chuckled and ruffled Annabeth's princess curls, we'll see, princess.
You're the big sister, Annabeth. You always have to look after and take care of Lacey. Athena smiled and pulled her little girl close, kissing the top of her head. You're the older and more mature one, so you're the one who has to protect her.
Let's go! Cried Aphrodite, looking drop-dead gorgeous in a simple pink sundress that did little to hide her godlike body. I'm going to get the biggest sundae there.
Athena sighed, no matter how immature and stupid they are. Annabeth giggled and kissed her mom on her cheek, making the goddess smile.
Now, remember what we discussed. Stay close to your dad and Dite.
Hold their hands if it's too crowded, and never run off on your own. Looking over at the bouncing Dite who was trying to secure a bouncing Lacey in her car seat, Athena pursed her lips.
And never let Lacey out of your sight.
When she's high on sugar, you know she'll run off in excitement.
Just hold on to her.
Annabeth nodded, as if saluting.
I will, Mom. Athena kissed Annabeth's head. You can never be too old to call me Mama, honey. The girl giggled, okay, Mama. Now go have fun. Naruto smiled at the sight of Annabeth running to the car, finally acting her age.
With a sigh, he wrapped his arms around Athena and kissed her as tenderly as he could, nibbling at her tongue, smiling against her giggling lips.
Are you sure you don't want to come with us?
He whispered, pecking her lips as he did.
You need to relax, too.
You know me, she replied, smiling against his lips, planning relaxes me. And I'll have your other half here with me.
Warmly rubbing her arms, Naruto nodded. Okay, but don't work too hard. You need to relax as well. Athena shivered at his lucid tones and could only smile in return.
You tend to forget the time when you concentrate too hard, so make sure to take breaks and eat on time. Don't worry, I'll take care of her. Another Naruto, his other half as a result of his Bunretsu no Jutsu, smiled as he wrapped his arms around Athena's waist from behind.
Now sandwiched between two Naruto, Athena flushed gold and couldn't look at either of them.
Both Naruto gave a low chuckle by her ears, sending shivers down her spine, and she could barely utter a sound as they peppered her with kisses. Make sure, whispered the Naruto in front of her as he nibbled on her lips, she doesn't forget to eat.
You know how she gets.
I will, whispered the Naruto from behind, kissing her earlobe. I'll make her favorite. His lips made their way to the back of her neck and trailed up to the back of her ear. You don't have to worry.
I'm not worried.
Naruto stared at Athena's wavering eyes as he caressed her golden cheeks. I know I'll miss her like crazy, so I'm just getting my fill before I leave. He kissed Athena as lovingly as he could on her lips, softly moaning into her as his tongue bid farewell to hers. I'll see you in a couple of days, my love. I'll miss you till then. He gave Athena's lip a final peck before pulling away. I love you. His fervent gaze did little to free Athena from her stupor, but she managed, I love you, too. He stepped away and kissed her hands. Bye. The other Naruto chuckled as he rested his head atop Athena's. Have a good trip. Take care of Dite and the girls for me.
Naruto smiled, I will.
Athena's gaze lingered on Naruto as he left. Even when the car started to drive away, her eyes followed. Naruto's other half tightened his arms around her waist and kissed her cheek. You know I love you literally as much as my other half, right? His voice broke the goddess from her stupor. I'm going to get jealous if you keep staring longingly at him. She managed to turn around in his embrace and placed her hands on his chest, still unable to look him in the eyes. You've become far too brazen lately, she whispered. Dite has been a bad influence on you. It's only natural, answered Naruto softly. You're too cute and I love you too much to not tease you. She could only stare at his chest. Let's go inside.
You said you're cooking lunch for me.
He chuckled. Anything for my lady.
Since when can cars move so fast? Annabeth watched as New York City fade into lines of light as they sped from their suburb street.
Gray blurred turned green as they left the metropolis and into the country, and soon cities and towns came and gone as mere specks across their frosted car window. The car was moving so quickly, Annabeth saw different weather patterns as they moved. From the cloudy overcast of their home in the morning to sunny, cloudless skies within seconds. Since one of your uncles begged me for a favor, answered Dite with a giggle, his children, your cousins, were having trouble with their relationships.
He needed my help and I asked for this car in return. Naruto gave a small laugh. I am loving this car.
He swiftly swerved by another town, his eyes occasionally flickering to his Sharingan to improve reaction times.
I don't think I can go back to the minivan after this. Are we there yet?
Annabeth turned on her sister. We've literally been driving for 10 minutes.
Lacey shrugged. You said this car is fast, right? Not that fast. Well, we're here.
Naruto chuckled at Annabeth's surprise as they caught sight of Cinderella's castle in the distance.
Yay!
Many a time had Naruto promised his daughters a trip to Disneyland. But as a father to two demigoddesses, he knew better than to bring them to a crowded, potentially monster-invested den. Year after year, he'd blame his work for not going to the theme park, and he hated their looks of disappointment. Annabeth quickly grew out of her Disney phase, or sensed her father's reluctance, and never asked after the first few times.
But Lacey never relented.
Birthday after birthday, Christmas after Christmas, Lacey would beg her father for a Disney trip, and Naruto's heart ached every time he had to say no.
But not anymore. He could finally watch his little princess eyes light up and run into the park.
Holding onto a VVIP family pass given to them by Annabeth and Lacey's loving grandparents, they could barely hold the small girl back as she pulled her family into the park, racing to the nearest cotton candy stand. With each girl holding onto a cone of cotton candy larger than their heads, they ran to the nearest ride, their passes allowing them straight to the head of the line. Be careful, girls, called out Naruto as his daughters giggled and ran to the teacups.
Lacey, hold on to your sister.
Don't worry, started Aphrodite with a smile, her arms tightly wrapped around Naruto's. There were some monsters in the park, but literally all of them ran away when they sensed us. Naruto chuckled. If I had regained these powers earlier, it would have saved me a lot of anxiety. They both smiled and laughed when they watched their children scurry into the ride, Lacey almost pulling Annabeth's arm off as she jumped into the teacup. Lacey was having the time of her life, but it was even more endearing for them to see Annabeth finally acting her age. Too bad Athena didn't come, Naruto said wistfully. She will love seeing the girls so happy.
Aphrodite shook her head. She doesn't like California. Really? He asked. Why?
Story for her to tell you another time.
The goddess of love winked. Come on, Daddy, I need you to get me some treats.
Kissing the top of her head, Naruto smiled. Anything for my lovely wife.
I want the biggest strawberry sundae you can find.
Dite's eyes sparkled at the thought before she pointed over at a lone stand, and I want one of those deep-fried pickles over there.
Naruto raised a brow. Deep-fried and pickles?
You hate both of those things. The goddess shrugged and licked her lips. I have a sudden craving for them. He chuckled. Sure. Racing away to the stall, Naruto felt his smile drain from his face. Away from his family, he felt the anxiety and fear seep back into his mind. The imminent confrontation with his inner beast was mere days away, and as much as he forced himself to detach from it, it was something too big to ignore.
For millennia, he'd survived, not lived.
The memories were faint and distant, but he could feel the past loneliness and isolation his past self felt. Times when days felt like years and every second was a loss to his pain.
Alas, he'd found happiness and peace, but almost immediately, strife followed. And he knew he wasn't alone. Since his reawakening, Naruto had regained his former grasp over empathy. He could feel the strong and negative emotions of those around him. And while he was thankful that he felt no such feelings from his daughters, he couldn't say the same for his future bride. Aphrodite, one of the loves of his life, a star that finally brought light and love into his dark and terrible world. She was the most joyous and optimistic person he'd ever met in his life. She was passion and love given form, and goddess of the most volatile and untamed domain. She'd been through every emotion her domain had to offer. She knew exactly how precious and irreplaceable their love had become, as well as how easily it could destroy her. The thought of losing each other, of losing their family, of losing the love they'd finally found, rendered them both catatonic. Seeing her still smile at him, still trying to ease his mind, to remain strong for him, made him feel an insurmountable love for her and utter hatred for himself. Order up! He managed an easy smile at the sight of her, beautiful and loving. Strawberry sundae and a deep-fried pickle. That was fast.
Despite her fears, she happily bit into the pickle and offered Naruto a spoon of ice cream. Here, say ah. Wrapping an arm around her waist, he gladly accepted her spoon, staring into her beautiful eyes. He would be strong for her, smile for her, he would do anything for her, just as he did for him. Delicious. The Jubi is a mass of power. It's not complicated, nor is it highly intelligent. It does have some rational thought and self-perseverance, but it merely reacts. It attacks and moves in the short term. There is no planning involved, no strategy. This battle will be a hunt, a match of wits and brawn. Naruto offered a hopeful smile. It is definitely more powerful than I am, but thankfully, we have much more brawn than it does wits. Based on stats alone, we do have the advantage. The sun had set, and dinner was finished. Sat shoulder to shoulder at their dinner table, Naruto and Athena stared down at their plan layout. Using Athena's own system, they brought to view the geography of their battle location, their strategies and all possible contingencies. Despite the subject matter and possible impending doom, Naruto felt at peace. This was their comfort zone, their shared hobby, and the root of their relationship. Just him and Athena together around a small table in a dimly lit room, discussing their ideas and clashing their minds. Sitting, standing and pacing around the small table, with books and bottles of dry wine scattered about the room, the two immortals truly connected. Based on your experience and what you've shown me, I have no doubt that your skills will give you a clear advantage. The only threatening weapon the beast has against you is your own emotions. Athena stood from her seat and paced around the table. Aphrodite and I have proved that we are capable of affecting your state of mind. We can calm all aspects of our domains, which together encapsulates most of our concerns. Yes, but while we can assume that you two can calm my emotions, we don't know for how long. If this becomes a drawn-out battle, we run the risk of you and Aphrodite's powers losing their effectiveness. Athena nodded in agreement. The last thing I want is for my mind to become accustomed to your power's influence. I propose that we stretch both your abilities as thin as possible. Either you or Dike can start off alone with the other only joining in if necessary. Yes, and if your mind really does become accustomed or resistant to one of us, the other can hold off for a while longer. Exactly. Naruto pursed his lips, but conversely, we must also take into account the possibility of yours and Aphrodite's combined power being ineffective. He continued before Athena could interrupt. I know it has worked before and I agree that it is logical to believe it will still work, but regardless, even if there is a sliver of a chance for it to not work, we need to have a contingency plan. Athena stared into his eyes. There is no contingency. What do you mean by that? If our combined powers don't work and you fall victim to the beast's wrath, there will be no contingency. This is a battle of control, meaning that if you don't take control over the beast will take control of you. It will be a repeat of what happened in the last age. Naruto silence sat down. In your body, the power of Jia's champion is focused and concentrated into a vocal point. It will become so unfathomably powerful that anything we do would be negligible. It wouldn't matter if we have all 12 Olympians and all other gods and goddesses present, because even together, none of us would stand a chance. He closed his eyes and sighed. So, everything comes down to one battle. All or nothing. Athena nodded. All or nothing. So be it, he said, meeting her eyes again. I may actually prefer it this way. All or nothing. She stood in front of him and gently placed a hand on his cheek. I'm glad you see it this way, but don't be overconfident. He held her hand to his cheek. I'm not. I'm merely playing the odds. As we said, at this moment, we have the advantage. It's better to take one decisive blow at the enemy rather than several disarming attacks. She smiled. You do listen in class. Naruto stood and welcomed Athena into his arms, and I have absolute faith in you and Aphrodite. He kissed her softly. I have faith in my love for you too. What do you mean? She whispered against his lips. Baby, he whispered back, his hands tightly holding her close by the waist. You have no idea how much control you have over me. Seeing her surprise, he kissed her hard on the lips. I am crazy about you. I am absolutely, head over heels, in love with you. Sucking on her lips, he near moaned, I know your voice will reach me. Her hands found their way into his hair, ironic, coming from you, she whispered, because you drive me crazy.
I'm the one who was head over heels in love with you.
He could only respond by attacking her flushed and swollen lips. Moaning into the kiss, Athena fought and subjugated his tongue with her own, I won't let Gia control you.
She will not have you.
She pushed him back into his seat and straddled his lap, you're mine, Naruto. His wandering hands found their way to her soft and plump bottom, his fingers grasping onto her warm, luscious body.
And you're mine, Athena.
She pulled away as she sucked on his defeated tongue and stared deep into his eyes.
I'm all yours, my love.
She leaned close and whispered against his trembling lips, now I'm going to make you mine.
But I'm not tired yet.
Naruto smiled at his little girl before kissing her forehead. You're just on a sugar high, princess. You'll be tired as soon as you calm down. We still a whole other day tomorrow in the park, so you need your rest. He lifted the small girl into his arms and held her close, rubbing his face against her soft hair as she rested against his shoulder. And your sister was running after you the whole day, so she's really tired. It nearly took half an hour for Naruto to convince Lacey to take a bath, but even after that the little girl was still hyper and full of energy. She had been hyperactive since birth and he had once associated it with her mother's genes, but after he regained his early memories as a child, he could proudly say that she was exactly like him.
He hoped she wouldn't start pranking people, though.
Fine, but can we watch a bit of TV before bed? She asked with her best whiny voice.
Sure, princess.
They had reserved a family suite in the Disneyland Hotel, and it was everything Naruto thought it would be. Even in the room, high and away from the festivities of the park below, the childhood fantasies followed. It was Lacey's dream room, complete with a fridge full of sugary drinks, a cupboard full of snacks in the shape of her favorite characters, and a bunk bed carved into the wall like a cave bed.
But alas, the big TV was in front of Naruto and Aphrodite's king-sized bed, so that where Lacey wanted to sleep. Still sitting on her dad's lap, Lacey happily put on her favorite movie. Toothless is so cute,
she said with a giggle, making Naruto smile and wrap his arms around her.
I wish he was real.
Lacey, came the stern, but still lovely voice of Aphrodite. We talked about this, no dragon training with your Auntie Artemis. Yeah, you don't even like changing our cat's litter box.
I can't even imagine cleaning up after a dragon.
Annabeth shivered at the thought, it's gross to think about. Lacey pouted at her mother and sister, I'll still love him.
Ignoring the bickering, Naruto smiled at the sight of Aphrodite and Annabeth.
The girl was sat upon the goddess' lap in front of a vanity mirror as she braided her golden hair. It seemed that when she was with Dite, Annabeth's latent little girl side would surface, and she would enjoy all the pampering and cooing the goddess had to give her.
Now we clip the end back to the side here, and we're done. Dite kissed Annabeth's cheek as the girl giggled, my so-called Andromeda's braid.
But you're more beautiful than that girl ever was.
Annabeth smiled at Dite in the mirror, thanks, mommy.
Much to the joy of Naruto, Annabeth had started to call Aphrodite, mommy, just as Lacey started to call Athena, mama.
You're welcome, sweetie.
Aphrodite lifted Annabeth into her arms and settled in on the bed next to Naruto and Lacey, smiling as the girls quickly climbed under the large blanket and huddled together in the middle. From her side, Dite gave her lover a dazzling smile as they tilted closer together, instinctively hovering over their daughters protectively. She rested her head on his shoulder as the girls argued about the movie. Kissing the top of Dite's head, Naruto just watched in silence, enjoying having his family so close together. And soon, the movie was forgotten, and the two little girls fell asleep. Lacey clung onto Annabeth's shirt like her safety blanket and Annabeth hugged her sister like a teddy bear. I can't even put into words how much I love these girls, Aphrodite whispered as she smiled down at her daughters.
Naruto gave a small nod, I know what you mean.
Staring into her eyes, he saw her facade fade and tears welled. Before she even sniffled, she casted a thick layer of mist over the sleeping girls, and Naruto reached over for her. He held her trembling frame tightly and kissed her hair, whispering to her ear as tenderly as he could, "It's going to be okay.
We're going to be okay." She nodded, but he knew it wasn't enough.
"I promise you, Dite, I will not fail our family." She met his eyes as tears fell. "This," he started, looking down at the girls before resting his forehead against hers, "this is everything to me.
And I will do everything and anything to keep this safe."
He kissed her as lovingly as he could on her lips. "I promise you, this family trip is the first of many, many to come." Dite kissed him softly and whispered, "I love you, Naruto."
"I love you, too."
In the midst of kisses and caresses, Naruto found himself in his bedroom. Before he could even reach for the light, he was shoved onto the bed, and he could scarcely trust his senses as Athena rested her body atop of his. He could feel every heavenly curve of her divine body as she writhed upon him, kissing and licking her way from his jaw to his neck.
"Hey Athena," he managed to moan, "what are you doing?"
He felt her warm breath trail up his neck, sending shivers down his spine. "Don't," Athena muttered as she reached for the hem of his shirt. With a flare of her power, she tore it from his body. There was only her thin silk chitin between their bodies as the goddess kissed his ear and whispered, "I hate it when you play dumb." Shakily, he held the side of her arms, involuntarily caressing her soft and warm skin. "This is very sudden." Still fully pressed against him, Athena slithered up to meet his eyes. "We have established that we are to marry. It's natural for us to consummate our relationship." He caught a sliver of doubt hiding behind her conviction as she continued, "You love me, and I love you.
I want to do this."
"We can't," he whispered, reaching for her face at her flinch.
"Why are you doing this?"
Emotions left her face as she stared down at him.
"Why are you rejecting me?"
He gently ran his thumb over her cheek, smiling as some life returned to her eyes. "There is a time and place for this.
And this is the perfect time."
She leaned against his touch, her eyes wavering against his. "We're alone in our home dash. With an impending life or death battle in 2 days," he interrupted. She fell silent and pursed her lips. He slowly sat up, pulling her close to his chest as she sat on his lap. His hands slid warmly from her neck into her hair, gently caressing her. As she hid her face into his chest, he kissed her head, breathing in her heavenly scent. "I'm not rejecting you, my love." He held her tighter as she stiffened. "I will never reject you."
She grasped onto him tightly, holding him close. "Don't you want me?"
she managed to whisper. He chuckled. "Are you kidding?" He squeezed her tightly. "I've wanted you for a decade, Athena. You have no idea how many times I've fallen asleep dreaming about making love to you, or how many mornings I woke to your gorgeous image haunting my mind." He couldn't see her, but he knew she was flushed golden. "You've been a fantasy of mine for years, and if you'd known about it back when I was still your student, you might have killed me." She rubbed against his chest. "I wouldn't have hurt you." He gave a soft laugh. "Maybe, but you wouldn't like what I was thinking."
"Then?" She whispered, "Then why?" "I understand you," he whispered back.
Running a hand soothingly down her back, he continued, "You cherish our relationship like a life passion. And I know I can't even fathom the number of plans and scenarios you've concocted about our first time together." He gently pulled back to look at his love, staring into her tearful eyes.
"But I know none are like this."
"The situation has changed," she answered, finally able to look into his eyes. "Seeing you and Dite plan our wedding, plan our lives, I know you want something romantic, something meaningful and natural." He kissed her softly. "I will not have you settle for a cheap night just because of a battle. I want our first time to be natural and comfortable and romantic." "Naruto," she could only whisper. Resting his forehead against hers, he stared into her. "When the time comes, and it will, we will not feel like this. There will be no fear, no anxiety, there will be nothing forcing us to change our plans. We'll be happy, at peace, and without concern. I will naturally carry you to our bed, in our home, and I will make love to you until we both collapse in pleasure." Still, ichor flooded her face and turned golden. "When we wake up the next morning, we'll be husband and wife. I'll pull you close, like right now, and I'll beg you for more. I will spend the rest of our immortal lives wanting you, needing you, loving you. Kissing her hard on the lips, he said, and when we have 100 children and 1,000 grandchildren, I'll tell each and every one of them the story of how Mom and Dad defeated G as champion.
You promise? Promise of a lifetime. That's it for this reading.
Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction.
Looking forward to having you on board again.